All right, I think I'm live. Maybe. Maybe. You recognize this guy? Welcome to the stream, everybody. I think we're live. Good morning, Grace. Now, I do have to say that right now, my Good Morning Graces are available to all YouTube viewers. But at some point, we may have to just do the opening 20 seconds of the Grace greeting in the morning and then have the rest be a Kick exclusive. How's it going, Hypnotic Eye? He just creamed one off this morning looking at Grace's picture. See, Grace, you're doing great. The kick work is paying off. All right, so in case you're not familiar with oh, hold on, give me just a second. Okay, my bad. I left the light on in there. So if you're not familiar with this is Elder Drazzy. And while this is like, I think this has 190 views, no comments, by the way, a Ben Thorp panel visit that has no comments. So this is Elder Drazzy. I don't know much about him. From what Grace told me, he's like a Mr. Girl orbiter. Ben went on the show, and in case you're not like familiar with the lore behind this was the stream where Grace, well, she claims she got bored and masturbated during this stream. So this is the legendary, not my words, quote, Grace went for a wank stream. And from what I've seen of it, it's pretty interesting. Ben, it's a pretty got a lot of really interesting Ben kind of lore in it as well. What's up, Joe Shabatoni, Obadiah? Who else is in here? Oh, Candy Warhol is in here. Wow. Montero. We got a whole crew. Did I miss anybody? Montero, the reason that I'm modded in Ruby's SpaceX chat, by the way. What's up, Ruby? This is Deep Lore. Like I said, it's got 190 views. Yeah, 190 views. Streamed a year ago. Zero comments. I don't know if she was. You'd have to ask her about her moisture levels. I didn't probe that deeply. Now here's the issue. I planned on doing it today and tomorrow, but this is a 6.5 hour panel. So it's just going to be basically Ben Mondays for like the next. I think we could probably do it in 3, maybe, but it might take 4. But to save on the people who don't want to see the Thorpe stuff, we're going to just do it on. We'll just do Ben Mondays. That way, after Bash Ben Friday, Ben can come in and watch like a Ben centric show on Monday. Help him out. What's up? It's me. All right, so that's it. That's all I got. What happened yesterday? Ruby and Grace and Ben had a reunion of sorts on her stream. Very interesting. Ruby had some great streams yesterday. The Thorpes had about a half hour on YouTube and then switched to Kick. The Kick stuff was interesting though. It had some funny OPC Don content. Grace dancing. I don't remember I don't know that the Jedi did anything yesterday, or if they did, I didn't get any notifications. Same with Vegan Patriot. So I've got to get caught up on them. You pass along the Stacy Lustful official recommendation to Ben. I mean, how can you not be a fan? Well, that's all the news I got. This is a long ass video. So again, this is Elder Drazzy. So I don't know that much about Mr. Girl. My Mr. Girl knowledge is exclusively what I've seen on the Thorpes. But supposedly this guy is like a Mr. Girl orbiter. So the title of the stream is Who is Ben Thorp Really? Hey, Jeremy. The gift basket was one of the strangest things I think I've seen on as weird as it sounds, like to me that was a really weird thing.
Okay, there we go. Cool. Never had it set up to where had enough couple. Okay,
For sure, Joe. There'll definitely be kick content on Thorpe Alert.
there we go. Cool. Ben.
In fact, I think that's like really conducive. It's mutually beneficial because there are a lot of people who aren't going to go to Kick who want to see the stuff, but maybe they'll see something on Thorpe Alert and be like, "Oh shit, I gotta go over there to see OPC Don in a lobster cage lifting competition."
Never had it set up to where had That is just a few. If anybody has any questions, okay, there we go. That aren't like insanely inflammatory. That is just a few. Obviously, I'm going into this. If anybody has any questions, hey Ben, there we go. That aren't like, I guess, what I would inflammatory. Honest. That is just a mind frame. Obviously, I'm going into this. Most. If anybody has any questions, hey Ben,
Is he
Ted?
echoing? Is that on his end?
Because I really like debates. I like watching people debate. I like debating people a lot.
Okay, hang on. Let me go back.
Grace!
There he is.
They're saying they can't hear me.
Why did OPC bring 20 lobster cages? I don't thoroughly think it was explained, but he did thoroughly explain the entire structure of a lobster cage, what everything on it means. It was like watching an episode of what's that show called? The what was the fuck was that fish show called? The crab show? I can't remember what the name of it was. Deadliest Catch.
Now I should be able to. It was popping up before, and I changed
1, 2, 3,
it.
4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4.
I had to create a new scene for this, and when you were first talking, it was showing me people said they couldn't hear you. Switched it. Now that I switched back, show it again.
Still says, Ben, you're muted.
Well, that was. How about now, you
I'm
guys?
still looking at ice cream, man. This is another reason why I don't have people on. This is exactly what would nothing would work.
Anybody?
1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4.
Yeah, what do you think of the look? I think this is like a super, it's super interesting Ben look.
1, 2, 3, 4. 1,
Okay.
2, 3, 4.
If we're being honest, that is kind of a Glenn Lawrence hat, but I could see OPC wearing it too. He likes to wear those kind of like hipster hats.
It's like they can hear you.
They can hear me.
I don't know what Ben's
All right,
hat
she
is.
said
though.
we're good.
It
Thanks,
just looks
Gracie.
that way to me.
Yeah, I really appreciate that. I have you in my direct front monitor so I can look at you when I'm talking to you, so I don't always check chat.
Okay.
Um,
Hello, Starlight. She says no, leave him muted. She's a pretty big streamer. Hello, Starlight. She's kind of a
Starlight?
hater. She's like a friend of me. Hello, Starlight. You ever heard of that channel?
mm-mm.
More of a drama channel. I think we come more out of.
I think based on what you've told me that Sam knows who they are, I would say if they get cast, that's probably not good news for them, but it's probably good news for the people that are watching. If Sam has somebody on there like that he doesn't like, I don't think they're going to get a very pleasant experience. But I mean, I'm certainly don't want to discourage him from doing it.
Drama, and you come more out of Mr. Grill Destiny, right?
Yeah, I watched Destiny like religiously for like 6 years. Like, if there's a new
Oh,
video on
boy.
it, oh shit, there's a new Destiny video on it. My wife and I would watch it. Yeah, because I really like debates.
Babe,
I like watching
wake
people
up.
debate.
New
I like
Destiny
debating
just
people
dropped.
a lot.
Grace, my camera shitted out again.
And-
Oh man, it's funny because you figure a camera either works or it doesn't, and it's just like depending on what the other.
Lots of people wear hats on stream, yeah. You notice who I always wear a hat, who always wears a hat is Lauren Jumps. I don't know if you guys watch that. She does like, I don't know, she's like a jump rope kind of wholesome e-girl content, but she always wears a hat.
Person is doing like. No, I no.
Oh, there we go. What's up, Ember? What's up, Z-Star? Hey, Reptilian Richard Ramirez.
Oh no.
Oh, you just had it.
No, come on, Grace. Come on.
If you want to see any more of Grace, you have to go over to Kick.
You had it going before. Yes. Well, we're just gonna have to. Okay, we'll keep it going.
Richard Ramirez, the hand of the Thorps.
Come on, don't give up.
There we go. Mine was a little bright.
All right, next time, Grace, we'll just go to. We have a beautiful Elgato, little like webcam.
You got Elgato face cam?
There
Yeah,
she goes.
which
I
is
got the
nice
same
because you
one.
can zoom in, huh?
Yeah, I got the same thing.
Yeah.
But
how do you know one of these little tiny
If you missed the Ruby versus the Thorps last night on her stream, it was really entertaining. You should check it out.
like problems, and it's just like sometimes it works and sometimes.
I felt like Clark Griswold in Christmas Vacation. Remember when Eddie shows up and he's like, I wouldn't be more surprised if I woke up with my head sewn to the carpet. For some reason, I always think, okay, the Thorps are never coming back on The Thorpes and Ruby are never gonna cross over again, and then it just every time I'm surprised because I'm a dumb viewer.
Sometimes it doesn't, which is very frustrating because like,
Blade of Ben.
it's not even clear what it would be. It's probably not the lens or anything like mechanical, you know.
No, it's always software side. Like it's funny. I'm an
Some
IT
kinda
guy
weird.
and I specialize in
Oh, you are?
surveillance cameras, so I know cameras really well.
Oh,
And I
you
knew
do?
the Elgato face camera. I was like, this
Oh, the Ruby thing? We could watch it at the end if we have time.
thing's insane for the price point.
Yeah, and we got it for
I
half.
have a real mental aversion to going to other content while we're watching content. I don't know, my brain just doesn't function with that very well.
Price because it was on. You know,
Although I've done it at times, I think every time I've done it though, it's been to watch Jedi Rich box in the in that apartment complex.
Something on Craigslist. Someone was selling it. And I was like, oh, Grace, let's jump on this.
Oh wow, did you pay like 50, $70 for it?
Something like that. I don't know. Grace got it. But she was like, oh, let's. I'm
That's
always
really
into
good price.
like good deals.
Yeah, me too. So I just want to say that I think that when I the first time I seen you was through the framing of like the worst family on YouTube.
Yeah,
And-
that's what most people encounter us. 400,000. I think between that and Destiny covering that, it's like 500,000 views. So like that's our almost everybody compared to the number of views we got. It's like astronomical.
Oh, see, I forgot about that. I went to Kick right after to see if there was any like aftermath or whatever, but I didn't realize they were like I didn't know what was showing on Thorpe TV or what is it, Thorpe Tube at the time?
Ratio.
Yeah, I believe that because it was everybody was talking about it for a bit, and when I first seen that,
Uh-oh, Richard.
it was just sort of like caught up in the like, whoa, what's going on kind of thing. And I talked to a friend of mine, and we sort of came to a conclusion like, well, like this is just like Jerry Springer here. This is just somebody coming in with like a story to tell about the people. Then you actually get to see the people, but you're kind of already have your mind made up, and then there's somebody sort of like prodding from the backside. And I was like, everybody has opinions about you guys. And I was like, I have no idea what I think because I haven't seen anybody talk to Ben or Grace without like some kind of like intention or something.
And Richard Ramirez, I don't know if this is true or not, but I heard that that as part of the Doge initiative, Elon Musk has deputized El Jim.
Like they're saying, hey, come on, we'll have a conversation, but it's very like cloak and dagger, you don't know when
it's very rare that I can have a conversation. It immediately descends into.
I really like the whole vibe of Ben being shirtless in the chair while everybody else was doing stuff. And every once in a while, he would yell at the people that were inside the building doing something to like come out and talk to him.
Insults, and then I'll insult back, which they like, and I'm okay with that. I'm okay to insult back. Like I'm into blood sports, but
it says it's a year ago, but I mean that could be, I don't know. It's like the reason that I think it's interesting is that it's got only got 190 views, which is pretty crazy for a bit, especially with a Mr. Girl orbiter.
It just you can't get very far that way. I mean, I feel like I'm more than just a guy who wants. I don't mind being a lol cow because I think a lot of times lol cows win in many ways.
Well, I mean,
they're very popular to watch. Yeah, I mean, like I don't know the Chris Chan story, but like everyone knows Chris Chan. It worked as far as marketing campaign. Like if you want to get your name known, be Chris Chan. I don't really think I am like that level, but we made the interesting decision to just be like, we didn't come in with. People say, "Oh, this is what you did to market yourself."
Yeah, I was thinking, Joe, when it says a year, it could be anything from like literally a year up to like 364 days, it seems like. So it's a pretty big, it's hard to tell. Oh, I could just click on the thing. I'm an idiot.
I was the first in the family, and I was the only one who intended to be. I just intended to do debates. So it's a lot like you. I feel like I was interested in this as a debater, not as. But I thought I could debate these people. And
oh my God, my internet is that. Oh no. Whoops. Shit. Uh-oh. I'm sorry, my internet is really messed
During
up.
that time, had an issue, and obviously
Raven?
some management just turned a blind eye to it.
Oh my God,
I think,
great.
I don't think, I think the...
What a disaster. Okay, maybe we'll be back on now. all my upcoming shows spoiled.
He didn't come in with. People say, "Oh, this is what you did to market yourself." If you actually watch my earliest stuff, I was the first in the family, and I was the only one who intended to be. I just intended to do debates. So it's a lot like you. If you like, I was interested in Destiny as a debater, not as. But I thought I could debate these people, and so I have a background in religion. I used to teach.
Okay, so October 1st, 2023. Okay. Ben's been harassed, bullied, arrested. I have terrible internet. Please don't show my Gooner search history. I mean, I show the Gooner videos on this stream. What are you talking about?
So I was
What's
doing
up,
like
Daninsky?
intellectual content. Then my daughter came on. She was doing tech. And then I was like, honey, if you want to come on with me, that'd be fun to have a co-host. Then people just started going crazy. And then her mother, I was like, oh, bring your mother on. You guys can do your own show. She got interested in Manosphere content, and as a natural reaction to this, why is everyone screaming at me that I'm a whore or a prude or a this or a that? It's just kind of interesting being a young female. And then all of these, the combination of the internet kind of craziness and the craziness that had been the family just came pouring out, and I was like, all right, we'll see where this goes, because. I don't think it's always bad. It's certain people are like, you're acting or you made this up. That's not true. It's like a natural, weird way in which a latent tension in my family just happened to pour out on the internet. I was like, let's just maybe this would be good. Get some resolution, and it did. So
interesting.
This had been going on for years, though. The stuff in the family had been going on for years, and the internet sort of accelerated it, the process, which was good because it was, in some sense, going to go there anyways.
Well, sure, because I imagine when there's family tensions, people try their very best to sweep it under the rug, and when it kind of
Ben in a Legend of Zelda Triforce hat, I'd be down to see that.
Creeps out, you step on it so it goes back under the rug. But if it's in front of everybody and people are asking you about it, you can't really pretend like everything's just fine anymore, and you got to deal with your shit.
Yeah, that's right, and especially something. It's a relatively subtle thing. It's definitely true that when my daughter was almost 16 years old, she sort of said I'm kind of lost, and I'm hoping you guys can help me out. And it was a situation that it's the situation of fairy tales.
Why are Ben's eyebrows so much thicker now? This is during a time where he was more probably maybe he was plucking them, having them threaded.
Or the stepdaughter things where the resentment of an older woman and the what I mean, and I got caught in the middle, and it's almost a universal thing. Everyone was kind of confused. Nothing really ever to be honest, nothing really ever happened. But then I just think,
I mean, it's interesting. It's color coordinated.
I actually don't know what you're alluding to.
Well, my daughter was. There had been tensions in the family. My take on it is that Grace's mother and I, in retrospect, never got married. That she was just sort of incapable of getting married for lack of maturity. But I didn't see it because I was used to seeing dysfunctionality in a family. But that when Grace, as the first of 6 kids, hit young adulthood, that this tension kind of came out.
Well, Ember, when people come to this chat, they break kayfabe from the other chat. So you hear it's kind of like the locker room. Everybody's out of character, just kind of hanging out, talking about the biz.
And what I mean by the fairy tale is Snow White. So this beautiful young girl, and there's an older woman who resents the young girl for taking the male attention away from her because she's sort of overinvested in just looks, and then there's this sort of antagonism, and who, if I'm friends with my daughter, which is totally normal and natural, and I'm like, honey, I want to help you out, then there's this resentment and there's this kind of spiral that can happen because what my conclusion as a parent of 6 is it's interesting. You wouldn't think this is true, but it is possible for a parent to not want their kids to grow up because when they grow up, they can feel like their kid is a threat to them instead of celebrating their coming into adulthood. That's what sort of happened.
I've seen this. When I was 18, my girlfriend had a stepmom who was like very openly didn't like her because she was threatened by her. It wasn't like a secret. It wasn't like an internal conspiracy that this was happening. Like I've seen this happen.
The stepmother is the classic case because the stepmother feels like the relationship between the father and the daughter is a threat to her relationship, which is, that's more.
Yeah,
he took over the show immediately, Joe. If you remember, while his microphone was like messing up and his video was cutting out, he was still addressing the chat. Like he took over immediately.
He doesn't see it develop either.
Yeah.
So she just comes in and then like, if this ever transitions from what it was when she was the newest person in the house getting the most attention, it's like, okay, well, like things have calmed down now. I'm focusing on my kids. It's like, well, what the fuck? That's when the insecurity kind of comes up. But I can imagine it could come up if you have a just biological mother that's not that. We are talking about Grace's biological mom, right?
Yeah, it's all biological.
It's all biological.
We're just one family, all Thorp. There's no like all my kids, there's none of that weird like three dads whose dad is what remarriage. We're not even divorced.
And all the same mom, right?
Yeah, that's what I mean. Yeah,
okay.
Both natural parents and all that stuff. So
yeah, I'm going into this.
Which chat are you talking about that you think you were hidden in? If you feel comfortable saying.
Pretending like nothing that I've seen on any of these streams have been accurate, or that at least that I can't trust any of it because I don't know what's been framed in what ways.
Yeah, I mean the thing, if you did see it, the thing called The Darkest Family on YouTube, not the Destiny edit, but like
the Joseph.
Well, Destiny was just reviewing it, but that is fairly accurate if you take away the narration is like slanderous, but those are clips, but they're clips from Discord calls, and there were hundreds of hours of Discord calls, and so they're edited to maximize. But I stand by them. Like if you had a context, it's a lot like the Mr. Girl thing in the sense like if you say to Mr. If someone was to say Mr. Girl made a video saying I am a pedophile, okay, that's true.
Yeah, he did.
Okay, make a video, but like
music video saying that,
clearly a genre, right? That
what a space.
Like
it's literally a parody song.
Yeah, right. It's right. Clearly is, but you could take it out of context and say he made
recorded
this video,
illegally,
and these are the lyrics of his song, and you could take them.
Ava got mad at me one time, Joe, when all she did was see that I was in the same Discord with her, and she shut it down until I left. Like she said, she wouldn't speak in it until I left because she thought I would be recording it.
Not in the context of being clearly.
I'll play it for you sometime.
Parody. So
it's happened. BX Bullet on Twitter was like. You literally have a song called "I'm a Pedophile." Like, yeah, it's a parody from "I'm a Criminal" by Eminem. Is BX Bullet concerned that Eminem is also a criminal? Like, what the fuck is this?
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
He robbed the bank in that song.
Like, so a lot of times I will say things that I think are, in some ways, also similar to Mr. Girl, because I know you're somewhat familiar with Mr. Girl.
I'm a very big Mr. Girl fan. Everybody knows me as like that guy.
Oh wow, that's an interesting. That was an interesting exchange there. Ben I think that was a little bit of a jab at this guy. I think Ben was feeling this guy out, and did you see how strong he came back when Ben insinuated that maybe he was a little bit of a Mr. Girl fan? He's like, no, I am known as the Mr. Girl fan.
Okay, see, I didn't really I think invited me on a panel. And then I got to know Smith. I didn't know any of you guys. And then I actually started watching People had been saying, because we've been on the internet for more than a year now, oh, you should, Mr. Girl, you should collab with Mr. Girl. And I was like, I don't really know. I watched a little of his content. I was like, I didn't feel like. And then I met you guys, and then I started actually watching his stuff, and I was like, oh, this guy is actually more interesting than I thought.
They're very high.
He's really, when some of his stuff he's able to have more thoughtful.
I don't know if it's because he's doing it intentionally and I do think he and Grace are kind of natural in front of the camera, but it's his hand motions are weird, but they're perfectly within the frame. Like everything he's doing, I don't know if if it's just instinct that he's watching himself and making sure everything's in the camera or what, but like
conversation
it just kind of stands out
than most people. And I was like, oh, actually really would like to talk with this guy. And then I saw so many parallels of
See, like how easy it would be to go out of frame, and he's like in frame almost all the time.
I think the difference is with the like his pedophile stuff and my, if you want to call it quote incest stuff.
The difference between his pedophile stuff and Ben's completely different.
Is he leaned into it like on purpose. That wasn't like there were rumors. He was like, I see stuff online that I want to troll by saying like there's this hysteria about pedophilia. So he kind of leaned into that and said like, I own it. I think this is an hysteria. I more like ran into this and then was like, I also agree this is an hysteria, witch hunt, crazy. But I did lean into it somewhat to say like, I actually like think there are some really unhealthy tendencies online that I'm happy to say should be corrected with humor, and I don't mind leaning into it. And at a certain point, if you're accused of something over and over and over and over again, you kind of get sick of defending yourself, and you just say, okay, fine, here's what it is. Like you go at it, people. You know, if that's all I can say, go ahead, go at it. So I actually started saying that I'm not only a pedophile, but that I'm a babyphile, and that I like having sex with newborn babies. I was like, just like, all right, let's just go there, only. You know.
I get it. So yeah, I have a question on here that I think you pretty much just answered. Like, you understand why people who haven't, like, who have maybe just seen like you on somebody else's.
What's up, Loki? You keep getting banned places.
Stream might have a negative opinion of you because like if they don't know the context, they can't tell that you're joking.
We the viewers get caught up in the crossfire a lot between when there's like little streamer wars or streamer drama.
You'd expect somebody to be pissed, right?
I understand that that's the norm on the internet. I don't think the internet person is a typical person. I think they're usually more intelligent than a normie person.
Ben has the grace to bring the stuff in, and then this guy's got somebody too.
But also, I think there is a massive sexual hysteria on the internet that is not normal outside of it. Like, for example, my PFP, let me see if I can show, does it show up?
I know, I seen it on Smeth's stream the other day.
Like
where your regular one, where you're kissing your kid.
Where I'm kissing my daughter. To me, that's a totally normal picture. I had Smith the other day was saying like, "Oh, that's a provocation. You're saying that like you're trying to tell people F you. I am openly, you know what I mean?" I was like, I don't think normal people would see a picture like that and leap to that.
Well, I think what he's saying is that when you're online, you know that if you have that up online, that you are kind of like poking at the people that are already mad at you. You're like saying like, this is normal. I know that it's normal, but like if you're gonna act like it's not, like then this will fuck with you, and I don't give a shit. I think that's what he was getting at.
He leaped to a conclusion with that, which is fine. You know, I mean, I guess I can see it retrospectively, but the actual fact, it was just, I thought it was a good picture of me. But I also don't understand why someone would be mad at me, or I don't even know what the allegation is.
I mean, I don't think that's true. I think first of all, Ben should be able to have a picture. I think I've seen the picture that he's talking about, and like I understand with the context of his situation why people might not like it, but there's nothing wrong with the picture. From what I saw, it just looked like a dad and his kid. But like Ben does know why people get mad, but that doesn't mean that he shouldn't be able to have it as his profile picture. But like I do think for sure he knows what's going on, and here he's like, well, I don't even know why anybody's mad about it.
Guess the allegation would be that I groomed and sexually, I don't know what it would be called. She was an adult.
People would say that you groomed and sexually exploited her.
Exploited.
Are you talking about the Jedi, Ember? Do I have the clip where Ben admits to having Eastern equine encephalitis? No, I don't think I do.
My daughter.
Yeah.
Why would someone be mad at? Usually, it's both of us. And what is their anger accomplishing? You know, like what is their investment? I don't.
In an alternate world where they didn't lean into the allegations, I think Ben would have been an amazingly Kino like dad's rights activist. Like, have you ever seen those kind of channels? Like, I think Ben would have been great at that, and I think it's worked heavily into his online persona, but it just gets kind of overshadowed.
I don't understand it. I think it's totally misguided, especially since it's just a rumor.
I think a lot of it is performative outrage. Unless people actually
Yeah.
believe, if they actually believe it, then I understand that some people would be pretty mad. I don't know how many people can actually say like, well, no, this is definitely happening, because I haven't seen anything that really suggests that it is. I've seen you make a lot of jokes, but like, I'm a pretty
Yeah.
jokey person. Like, and I guess I just do my best to know my audience. When my wife and I used to live in the Thumb of Michigan. I don't know if you've ever been to the Thumb of Michigan. It's
The
very
Thumb?
religious. Everybody knows everybody. Super small towns.
The Thumb meaning the part, is it part of the part that's near Canada? That's what they call the
on
northern.
on your way up. So like the Thumb, because Michigan's shaped like a mitten, we call it the
Okay.
Thumb. So if you're like headed up towards the part where, so like you can get into Canada from Detroit, and then also
Should I clip this? Ben Thorp learns about the Thumb of Michigan.
like Port Huron, and it's about 70 miles north of Port Huron. Like 1 square mile town, 11 churches. This kind of
okay.
community. So like everybody knows
Yeah.
everybody. And so like
Look
I
at
used to
Ben.
make, my wife and I like making jokes that like I hit her or whatever. Cause she thinks it's funny. She plays into it. I think
You
it's
hit
funny.
her?
Yeah, it's like a joke between us. Like
Yeah.
I don't hit her.
Did you see Ben's face when he heard you hit her?
But like we joke about it because well, as soon as she said like she like expressed that she thought that's funny, I think that's funny that she thinks it's funny. And when we moved
What's
down
going
to
on
a
with
bigger
Ben?
city,
Is he okay?
she brought me a can of like corn at the grocery store, and I was like, "Oh, that's the wrong kind." She was like, "Don't hit me!" And this dude stared at me. He's like, "No, we can't joke like that here. Like somebody's gonna just come up and beat my ass. They're gonna think that I'm beating you."
Right.
And she's a lot smaller than me too, so it's like
Great freeze screen,
I
though.
understand that if people don't have context like they did where everybody
Yes.
knew us, they wouldn't bat an eye. They would just assume that like they know me, they know her. There's no reason for them to have concern. But if you don't know us, you might think that I just beat my wife's ass because she flinched and said, "Don't hit me," when she brought me the wrong corn.
Right. Yeah, there are a lot of aspects of it that are interesting. I don't know if this is true because I actually find it funny that
He-Man, I don't know if that's 100% true. I did see you, and I'm a moderator in the chat, but I think I'm never gonna time anybody out unless it's like Ruby specifically says like, hey, this person like doxed somebody or whatever. But I did see you type something that was kind of mean yesterday.
I was watching Mr. Girl the other day. He actually mentioned Grace and I 4 months ago, and he's saying like, oh, him and Smith were saying, oh, everyone's talking about this, and it's like, well, I didn't really actually even realize that. I knew we had a lot of views, but like.
Middle East clip on. Oh, I'll have to check it out. I've been going through. I've been doing a lot of diving into Courtney's stuff since a lot of my poor like my time. You know how you can like you can do an official like YouTube clip so that you have a timestamp to go back to. My clips, it's just like a war zone. Everything is grayed out. So much from Ruby's channel that got taken down. Both of the Thorpe's channels, just completely depressing. It's just a bunch of King Slothy clips in between a bunch of gray screens. Well, and Gunnar clips, obviously.
Not a lot of people were covering us per se. A few kind of big streamers covered us, but then it was like, oh, everyone's talking about it. So what is that? But I think probably the number of people who would at least know the name Thorpe would probably be more than 100,000 who would just be able to know the name. But then again, the internet. Well, I do think the internet's quite big, so. But streamers on the internet would be a much smaller group, so I don't know.
Yeah, during Ruby's chat, Ruby was bringing up Grace's weight, and He-Man put a row of 7 pigs.
Exactly the context, but I came to the conclusion. I don't know if this is true that like for like the core, the root of this is envy. That I think a lot of people don't know if that's true. A lot of people envy.
I think it was okay, though, because I think even, like, the police will let you get away with speeding if you're going with the flow of traffic. I think that's, like, a rule.
Me having a great relationship with my lovely adult daughter. I don't think a lot of people have that. And also envy her having a great relationship with her dad. That's, that's fun and warm. And that I think they just, like, it's interesting.
Well, I think if the Thorpes are done with YouTube basically, and it's just the YouTube it's like a Kick waiting room, they should just let me be editor on Thorpe TV, and then I can utilize all of that private footage to promote their Kick channel.
that you don't see many father-daughter teams on the internet. Jordan Peterson and his daughter are somewhat that.
I've never seen his daughter ever, so I wouldn't.
Oh,
even
Michaela Peterson, she's pretty big.
I know him. So one of the things that I think
But they weren't a team. That's right. They weren't a team. She came on.
I'm a mod. I thought it was fully within the rules of the chat. I'm just saying.
Later, and sort of, well, you could say rode his coattails, whatever. But yeah, he was clearly a single.
Oh yeah, I wouldn't have even known. But it's not like I don't avidly watch Jordan Peterson. So
yeah.
But like I see some of his stuff here and there. One of the things I think is really interesting is that you are, I would say, like unnaturally comfortable with people thinking bad things about you. Like you don't care.
Yeah. I don't give a fuck. I have that.
I like that line. You are naturally inclined for that
personality type. Like it's
the follow-up question. That is that this usually happens to somebody who like gets like a villain status put on.
Well, that's what I mean. Like, I've been editor for the Jedi. I've had editor privileges on the Jedi, and like, if anything, they probably wonder why I don't do anything. But in reality, like, I'm spending so much time like watching. Like, as a viewer, there's just so much stuff from them that I've never seen before. But like, I would hope they would trust me that I wouldn't do anything bad. But I do think there's a lot of stuff in there that people want to see, and that would probably get people over to the Kick if that's where all the new content is going to be. And they're demonetized, and they don't do clips and stuff like that
on them like a lot earlier, where you kind of have to figure out how to deal with it. Is that your experience?
Only if we're being arrested for a crime against grace.
Deep in the family. Yep.
Yeah. How did that happen to you?
Yeah. So actually, the way this happened like simultaneously. It happened within the family, but it kind of happened with my extended family. I'm not sure if you're familiar with a guy named Jesse Lee Peterson. He has this kind of interesting.
No, in truth, the only reason I remembered is because she is always really nice, and then I saw that, and it actually made me laugh, and I was like, "Wow, really?"
Everyone knows. He's another guy. Everyone knows him, but he doesn't get that big of numbers. But everybody knows Jesse Lee Peterson. So he has this theory about like family dynamics. L.A. I think is where he broadcasts out of, but no, he was originally from Alabama, so I don't know if he ever.
I thought I'd seen something. And maybe he was just in Detroit. Sorry, continue.
But sure, yeah. So he has this.
There's a great clip in there that I want to clip, but I don't know if they're pretty lenient. I don't think they really care what I clip and post, but I doubt I'll post it. But it's a really funny video. Joy's on the toilet singing "Redneck Woman," which if you watch the Jedi Joy deep dive into her like the deep cuts episode, that's one of her like signature songs. Like her singing it on the toilet is really funny, but I don't know if I could like actually put it up or not.
This theory, because I was always like, my experience was that I was rejected by my mother, and then my family was sort of like on her side, and that's a tough place to be. Really wasn't for anything in particular, but I just got used to being like the guy who like everyone was sort of afraid of or weary of. And then, I saw these dynamics. I was like, that makes sense of everything. My mother kind of is a controlling, I would say, covert narcissist in the family, and
covert
controls
narcissist.
Everyone else, and I just didn't buy it for whatever reason. I didn't buy it growing up, and so so I was like, okay, I'm gonna let them all know that this is what I see. And when you're young and you have something like that, it can be you're originally sort of angry about it. And you can have this messianic complex.
Is Ben sending a message with the hand? Sometimes it's just up in the air, like for a long time. Like it doesn't. I don't really know why.
I also taught, and then later I became Catholic, taught in a Catholic school. I saw a lot of things that went on there, and I also like would point it out, and nobody particularly wanted that, And
that's fair. I mean, it's okay to let the mean girl out.
So I got used.
We're a very mean girl friendly community.
To it, but so that's true. My natural personality is I don't give a fuck about that. I think it's funny. As a Christian also, like, I don't think we should.
I think the first Kick clip is going to be when Paulie called in. That was absolutely outlandish.
Care what other people think. I know that can lead to a kind of almost sociopathic.
Isn't this another one of Grace's loops? And it's not, this one's not entirely her fault, I guess, but like some guy will come along and become like a big donor, drop like just love bomber with donos, gifted subs, everything like that. And then at some point or another, like they get upset because they're not getting the level of access to Grace that they think they're entitled to. And so they like slowly start to turn into like a hater. Like that's, I feel like I've seen that already just in like since I've been watching like several times.
Kind of behavior where you just really just don't care even when you should. But I don't think that's the case, but I just think they're like that person.
I can't come on here as someone who clips Grace Thorp and Ruby Spacek and Vegan Patriot and say that I'm like anti-mean girl. That'd be pretty transparent.
Personality type is healthy in a society to point out problems in that society. So I think it can be very valuable, but it often people don't say like, "Hey, thanks a lot for pointing that out,"
Yeah,
so,
I think that's pretty fair. So just to be
but
curious,
I'm fine playing that role.
When you say that about your mother, was it like you would?
I mean, I definitely got that feeling, Ananje. That phone call was pretty rough. I mean, to listen to, but hopefully, hopefully he'll stick around for a while and fund whatever repairs on the RV.
You wouldn't be playing into the thing she wanted you to, so she would say things like, if you were doing something she didn't want, she'd be.
That's true, Candy Warhol. But I don't know. I mean, I think I don't know. I just go back to again. I just think like the stuff that I like of hers, I'm not a big fan of her drama stuff. I just like the vibe stuff, the scooter content. The same with Ruby. I actually like her non-Thorp content better. I like the walks to Dunkin', but I'm like a big loop person too. So like I like the walks to Dunkin' Donuts, the walks to get the vapes or the cigarettes, the Fernando encounters. Which, by the way, listen to this. So Ruby did a Q&A because she reached her dono goal yesterday. And so, because she got remonetized, if you don't know. So she was doing a walk and ran into Fernando, and she said that Fernando could ask her a question, and Fernando looked right at her and with no hesitation goes, "Horny or no horny?"
Be like, "Oh, just ignore Benny. He's an asshole. He's got a behavior problem." Would she like throw that kind of shit on you?
Ultimately, she came up with the exact same theory that my kid's mother came up with, which is always the theory. And the theory is that you're crazy, but you're like you don't realize it, and that this craziness leads to violent, like a tendency towards like anger and inordinate anger and violence, and also sexual, like
Deviancy?
outsized sexual deviancy, or
horny
just,
or no
like,
horny.
All it ends up being is this is just.
Chat got really concerned too, Joe Shavatoni, like big time. They were like, "Oh my God, Ruby, be careful."
A difficulty dealing with masculinity. So I think that's
tried
just sort
to
of a
mooch her
vague way of
tacos.
saying I don't know how to deal with men and I'm afraid of them. I think that's the core problem. And so in my mother's case, she had all these theories about her father that I have no idea, because she was originally from Norway. I never met them. But there were all these theories that she told me about her father. And I was like, man, that guy sounds.
I know they covered it on Thorp TV, and I think Steve and David went on and read it. But if you guys I ran out of gas on the idea of doing it at a location, which I could still energize up, I guess. But if you still want me to do a reading of Ben's mom's book in some form, I'll try to get that going again.
Sounds crazy, including like beatings when she was an infant, sexual impropriety. And he was a man of the cloth. He was a Lutheran minister. And
what's up, John Smith? Okay, is this actually a real channel? Which channel?
And so when I got a little bit older, I was like, oh man, I think you might have some daddy issues. You know what I mean? Whether that happened or not. And then, and then I could see like, I see what happened. Your mother told you this shit about your father.
I figured people would click just because of Ben in this hat. I feel like it's such a like shock to the system to see Ben dressed like this.
It may have had a little bit of truth to it, but I don't think any of it was true. And anyway, so I could see the same thing going on, that my father was cast when I was young as this kind of guy who's kind of crazy, has anger issues, and has sexual issues. And then it was applied to me. And then, you know what I mean? I just call it daddy issues, that if you are masculine in a way that you don't.
It does feel really meta too, because like it's weird, but like all the characters could be in the chat like right now with us, and like there really wouldn't be any drama. I don't feel like, you know what I mean? Like it's so weird to think about that. That like makes it's, I don't know, it's really weird. I just thought about it just now that like if Grace and Ruby were in chat, like I don't think they would get into like a big argument. Can I have Spicoli and EFD read excerpts? Sure. That's why you clicked, because of Ben's outfit. Oh, I see. I told you. People see the hat.
Ask for forgiveness for, or become like a kind of weak man to placate.
Speaking of, there's Grace. I think Ruby had to go to work or something.
Women's rage, that you get cast as this type of character. So it's like, well, as far as you know, I'm not saying everyone has to be like me, but I was like, look, I'm a man. I got no. How could I apologize for being a man? Yeah, I have a strong sex drive. Sure. I'm also 6'8". Yes. I also have an outsized personality. All that's in some way related to, testosterone. I don't think this can possibly be anything inherently wrong with that. So you're going to hate me anyway, so bring it on.
Interesting. I think maybe I can understand it through the lens of, I know when I was like 18, 19, 20, I was certainly the most angry and physically active I ever was in my life, and that's like peak testosterone years.
Yeah.
And since then, like I've definitely calmed down and not been as much, and definitely highest sex drive. Jesus Christ, being in my 30s, I could not imagine. I would never want.
Ben said he felt like roping after this stream. Wow.
I would never want that sex drive again.
Ben's outfit looked like at first maybe he was friends with Speakeasy, and Speakeasy was like, "Hey Ben, I got this clothing label," and like sent Ben some merch.
That would be
interesting.
It'd wreck my body. Like it would destroy my body. Like I have a pretty good one, don't get me wrong, but not like 18 years old me.
Oh, thanks, Platinum.
18 years old. I went through a 36-pack of condoms in a weekend with my girlfriend.
Oh, and, wow, what a stud.
Half the time we didn't even use them. I hurt my abdominal muscle. It was like fucked up for like 3 years.
This guy's bragging about using condoms.
If I overdid it, I would feel flare up. Like I'm 35 years old. I'm overweight. I'll pass on that kind of that level of desire.
Yeah, maybe. Well, but I don't. I don't know. I think a lot of times that's I don't think necessarily sex drive equal. Like I actually.
Did this guy, after Ben told him that he has a voracious sexual appetite and he's got raging testosterone, did this guy follow that up by saying that he does not have those qualities? That's a weird kind of exchange.
Like body count is like extremely low. I'm extremely loyal, and like I've never.
I think the lore Deninsky says that she flicked the bean because she was bored.
Never used a condom in my life. So okay, well maybe a few times, but it's I don't know. I think masculinity.
I misunderstood him. I thought he was saying that about himself. I think he's saying that he knew somebody who said that they had a lot of sex, and then his response to that was, "Oh, that's okay because I don't like that. That's too much for me." As I thought he was talking about himself, but I think he was relaying a story about someone else bragging to him.
Is something which often gets portrayed as being excessive in some way, but I actually think that's a misguided. I'm not sure that's necessarily the sex drive. It could be the sex drive and like a kind of compulsive behavior that causes it to go off the rails like that. Because
whoever asked the question earlier about Grace's southern area might want to bring it back up again if you want to try to get a direct source answer.
I think sexuality, to some degree, and like this is in the Catechism of the Catholic Church, it's bigger than just what you do with your penis. It's like it kind of.
Oh, there we go. Okay, he's saying he was. Okay, I get what you're saying now.
Kind of is at the core of who we are, especially in all of our relationships, including relationships with people that you would never think of having.
When he was 18, he was running through 3 dozen condoms at a time.
Sex with, but there's a dimension of desire and attraction and also the fun part of sexuality in a totally healthy way with even younger generations, your own kids and like older people and all that stuff. Now that people on the internet can't handle, but I think it's definitely true.
I'm pretty sure I understand what you're saying, but maybe
The little text down at the bottom is saying, many months in the making, I meet with Ben Thorp to have a one-on-one discussion the way everyone should be able to have one. Honestly, with an open mind and listening ears.
maybe we can go through this to kind of
Sure.
because to me, what you're saying is that our sexuality is such an inherent part of our thinking. It's like we have like reptile brain, primate brain, and human brain, and reptile brain wants to kill.
Basically, Grace is saying that there was actually probably nothing actually sexual about the act, but that Grace was using masturbation as a sedative.
Or fuck everything. Primate brain
Mm-hmm.
wants to investigate, kill or fuck everything. In human brain, we have these tendencies pretty strong. But like all three,
if there's one thing I think of when I see this guy, it's that his brain is just like kill and fuck for sure.
Of them always still want to fuck everything. And then our human brain kind of sorts this out and prioritizes and manages all these things. Says, okay, here's what's actually important. Here's when we have room to do these things. Here's what we have to suppress.
Yeah.
Here's what we don't suppress. But they're all still there. And I think that even if you look at like Eastern philosophies and religions, like your root chakra is your balls, or in women it's your ovaries. Like there's human beings have always sort of understood that our sex drive is it's called a sex drive for a reason. It's the thing that's usually piloting the craft that is the human.
The fuck is the
Right, and
and
in some ways, I believe that human beings are creatures of desire. We are erotic in the Greek, the term, I think it's Greek, eros, meaning desire. So erotic can mean like a devout person of prayer has a desire for unity with God that is very similar to the desire of like the passion of a lover for his beloved, and the Bible is filled with that, and there's no problem with that. And if you call a priest father, it means like in a certain sense his seed is a spiritual seed that
I keep hoping Joe Shabatoni will ask Grace the questions about the wank that I can't ask as an unbiased host.
Bears fruit. Like the Bible is fine with all of this kind of agricultural or even
Grace says, one tidbit of Drazi lore, he's a bottom of the barrel Mr. Girl Orbiter, which, by the way, now that she said it publicly, is how this was pitched to me. Ben talking to the lowest Mr. Girl Orbiter. And he has a peeling sore on his forehead. Some theorize that the sore is a devil horn growing out. Wow.
Terminology of husbandry. A seminary, for example, the same word, a semen, it's a seed place. And in a sense, Jesus he penetrates the church with his love, and from that comes like culture, and all that stuff is fine. It can be weird, obviously.
There's a
if you're,
lot
like,
of sexual
whacking off to the Virgin
words.
Mary, but it's a fecund religion, and someone like Richard Spencer, who's like I think mostly an idiot. But if he says like, oh, Christianity, I have respect for it because it's a cult of fertility.
Hey,
in some ways, yes. In some ways, yes. Like when you're filled with God's love, you want to burst forward and create new life in families, in spiritual communities, and you want to make like the whole world your bitch. You want to penetrate it with the seed, the gospel, and it's not that different from like Genghis Khan wanting to just like fuck everything in his path. Christianity has that nature, not like rapey, but like I want you to, I want to share. When the Virgin Mary was in some sense penetrated by God's love, she went to her cousin. And
Trad girl, by the way, still penetrated.
This amazing thing that had happened to her, right? It's like so I don't have any problem with any of those images. I think obviously it can be ridiculous at a certain point. And you have to be careful, right? And we all know, like a priest who
bursting Ben
that literally is an idiot, and that's dangerous. But I do think the world is soaked in sexuality. Look at nature; it's soaked in sexuality. And I just think it's a matter of like finding where it's not so much whether that's okay or not. It is the way it is. So, but I think it is a matter of like sort of where it's where it makes sense and where it doesn't make sense. And it's very difficult to navigate that.
Joe Shabatoni's right. This does kind of have the feeling of like, I always kind of thought like flow state level people or grid 1 were like the tune-ups, but like there's even a pretty big gap between, in my opinion, between somebody like flow state and this guy. Like Ben, this is like seeing when we see like Fred Ottman in Memphis Wrestling. Like that's how Ben looks on this platform to me. Like he's just light years beyond this guy.
In a post-sexual revolution, when
this guy's so overwhelmed by Ben, like I just feel like I don't know what he's like ordinarily, but he just seems really like passive here.
We ourselves as a culture are sort of trolling all of the rules, and we don't really know what the new lines are, and people just get really scared, I think, when they think of children, let's say on, this website, Omegle, like,
yes.
What if my 12-year-old daughter is talking to random guys who can be...
She's going to see a ton of dicks. That's what's going to happen.
Yeah.
My buddy used to go on Omegle all the time at my house, and I just eventually be like, all right, dude, you just need to turn your laptop. Like, I don't mind seeing a dick or two. Like, it's not gonna fuck me up. I'm pretty comfortable with my sexuality. But after I've seen like 40 or 50 of them in like a 4-hour
King TL
span, like I've had enough. Like, I just don't want to see it that much anymore. Please. Like, I understand.
Ben is in court right now. Grace is in the chat. You can ask her. Maybe she's snuck her phone in.
You're trying to find the one chick that's gonna show you her titties, but we're talking about like a mythic video game level drop here to where you're gonna grind all day to get that one. Like, just Google tits, all right, if that's what you're going for.
But here's the interesting thing: you and your buddy were what, 12, 13 years old?
No, I was like fucking like 18 or 19 at my house.
Ben has been sentenced to 2 years in prison. Sorry, South to West.
So he's just there with the laptop, and I'm like, dude, just turn it, please. I'm good.
But there's some here. This I don't think is controversial, but 12 and 13-year-old girls may find that kind of...
Grace, don't whatever you do, don't let your mind wander and end up flicking the bean to this video a second time while your dad's standing trial, while his life hangs in the balance.
Funny, and at the same time a little bit like he, right? I don't know.
Can I play this in 2-speed? No, I can't. No, we're gonna in fact, I thought we would do it today and tomorrow, but I said earlier, like, it's so long. We're just gonna have every Monday just have to be Ben and Elder Drazzy Monday for the next few weeks.
I know that it's terrible, but like, they are not unaware that, male sexual interest is, something that's on their mind. Maybe their reptile brain is saying like, well, everyone knows like 12 and 13-year-old girls and boys are sort of, the hormones are going a million miles an hour. Now you have this thing that you can just click on. And I know girls...
No, I can't. In fact, I have to show the entire video with full context, or I'm added to the lawsuit list.
Did this and do this, and like, it's weird as a parent. How do you, what are we going to do about this? Okay, so I think there can be a tendency to get hysterical. I think it can be okay, like, because really, how is this going to turn into something that's like, it's online. But there can be people who say like, okay, I want to take this online fascination and turn it into a real life one. So it's interesting. I just find it interesting, like the advent of the dick pic. Since I'm sort of new to like the dating market.
Here's another clip. Ben Thorp talks the advent of the dick pic.
It's like, dick pics are normal.
Yeah, I'm a lot super of uncomfortable with it.
But in another way, I'm like...
Okay, earlier he said he didn't mind if he saw one or two. Now he's flip-flop. Now he's anti-seeing them.
Okay, I can see it.
It's not that I've never sent it, but I have to be explicitly asked. It just feels so weird. You're digitally flashing somebody. Like, I would never, like, flash somebody.
Did you see Ben's reaction? I think Ben in his mind was like, is this guy for real? Is this guy serious?
Even if I was like interested in, like, but if they're like, hey, let me see your dick, like, here you go, I'll pull out my dick. That's not a problem for me.
Yeah.
If I have a green light. But it's so weird to just be talking to somebody and then assume like, oh, I'm just gonna go ahead and guess, having no physical social cues whatsoever because we're texting, that she wants to see my dick. And if not, oh well. And not only that,
Ben's like, listen, you don't have to go through all the mystery. Just start a, invite only section of your Discord open to people who want that.
To like, in order to get, if she doesn't like it, then she has to reopen it to delete it. It's just like,
oh, thank you, Montero. Appreciate that.
You just like double whamming. It's so weird to me. And I think I maybe sent, like, I have one picture from like 10 years ago because I have no desire to take another one. Like, if you want to see, here you go.
Yeah,
like,
then you have to
I'm
actually take the
fatter
dick
now.
pic.
Well, hold on a second. Isn't that weirder that you would just have like you would just have one on hand and be like, "Oh, listen, I'm willing to send one, but like hey, it's from 10 years ago." That's really weird, I think. You wanted the special emojis, the digital flashers.
Which is yeah, right. As an older guy, I'm like, well, I've
Burstin' Ben and Elder Drazi.
actually been in this situation where I'll just send a flaccid one because like I'm too old. Like I've been with a woman for 20 years. I can't just like do this like a younger guy could do like at the drop of a dime. And I said a flaccid one, and I said, well, you got to take it the rest of the way. You know what I mean? And like, but it is a kind of, I get that there's a kind of like intimacy of saying like I trust you. In some ways, girls.
Honestly, like if you came from like the lolcow world and you didn't know like the background, this is a pretty good little primer on Ben, really, on Ben lore and a little bit of early Thorp lore.
Like, yeah, I'm not talking about girls, little girls, but I'm talking about like
women,
young women. Sometimes I interact with, mostly in a kind of paternal, joking way, but sometimes they want to like, fuck around. I think that's perfectly fine and funny. I get that they do that with.
Oh, thank you, Grace. What an all-time dono from our demonetized queen.
With each other, they use like language that, it could.
I got to get a
shocking,
screenshot for the museum.
Around. But I'll get like a picture, someone topless, and I'll be like, I really appreciate that. Here, let me give you something back. And I think that's part of like how it works. It's like, okay, because I've been like, I don't know what to do with this, and then I'll talk to like people on the.
I told someone the other day that doesn't know anything about YouTube that Ben sent exclusively flaccid dick pics, and they said that would be like regardless of the situation, what's going on down there, that like that's like that would be the worst possible thing a guy could do in her opinion.
The internet, like I don't know what. And then I had a girl say like, well, I was just hoping you'd send me something back, and I was like, you know what is, yeah, I'll do that. I'm sorry about that. And then of course she gave them all to
Yes, Grace had to have one more emoji than anybody else just to keep it legit.
Ethan Ralph, and he showed them on stream. So okay, well that's just the world we're in,
Oh, that's very interesting.
It was tricky for me at first to navigate.
Yeah. She was like, wouldn't you want the picture to be like you at your, like, if anything, be like almost too good, like an unrealistically good picture that you happen to have? And I was like, well, he feels like it's more about the mystery of it. And she's like, yeah, I don't want to solve that mystery.
Yeah.
Because it's so weird, because in many ways you're doing foreplay that would normally be taking place in real life, but you're doing it on the internet. So like some women, they just want to show you their goods, have you go, whoa, that's awesome. And then they're gone. Right. And if you're not okay with that, which I didn't used to be, I was like, okay, so that's foreplay. So when are we going to like close the deal, And I didn't even know what I was saying because like I was just new to the whole thing. But then I realized, sometimes they just want to have validation that you go, whoa. But it's not necessarily that they're fake pics. They just like it to turn you on and then move on to the next guy.
Yeah, they get that feeling of desired and they can do whatever they want with it. I think
it makes sense.
Maybe I learned that lesson a long time too. I put that one picture online because I was asked to, and then it circulated amongst everybody in my small community. So like now, like for all I know, like everybody that I ran into knew exactly what my dick looked like, and it's weird.
It's weird, especially if you have like I have kids, right? So theoretically, it could be that these pictures circulate with their friends. But on another level, look, a penis is pretty much a penis. And it's kind of interesting because I was like, oh, a dick pic. So these guys, but what do you do to make your penis stand out? It's like, it's unlikely you've got
Okay, here's what I think. If you really want to impress the woman, you need two major points, right? I think anyway. Well, three. You want a flattering angle. You want something in the picture for scale, and you want good lighting. I think those are your three core ingredients.
We're all usually within a certain thing, and then you could do a little bit with lighting, but it kind of is what it is. So I was like, oh, okay, it's just kind of fun. It's kind of fun to say like, okay, we all have one of these. What's the big deal?
Yeah. I just think it's just not something that like I seek out participation in. But like I'm 35.
Yeah.
I'm not
Right.
like super young.
And
but,
you're
like,
married.
Yeah, and I'm married. So it's not like I'm sort of just like in between. Like it wasn't super common when I was like a late teen, early adult. It
Yeah.
became more and more normal. And so I just
Banana
think
for
I'm just sort of
scale.
in this weird middle spot where like I very much
Yeah.
understand where you're coming from. More, I think I understand where you're at with it more than I understand with the casualness of it. But I don't give a shit what people want.
Or if you know that there's something that could impress the person, you could send like your dick like compared to a sugar-free Red Bull, for instance. That could be eye-catching to the right audience.
Want to do. I just kind of freaks
But
me out.
it gets really weird. And you know, I've never had this experience, but you know, when people you don't necessarily know how old the person is that you're dealing with. And when someone might say all of a sudden, you know, you could usually tell someone might say, "Oh, I'm 17, by the way," and whoop, you just committed a federal crime, and it's like, "Oh, what?" You know what I mean? And then I've had that experience, and then they're like, "I'm just kidding. I'm 25."
Surprise! You just committed a federal crime.
Or in one case, it was like, "I'm a dude, actually." Those aren't even pictures. Those are pictures I got off the porn site, and I was like, "Oh, okay." You know what I mean? But
I've
it's
had
like,
that once. I've had that
weird.
happen to me once. Yeah. Yeah. That I think it's all kind of weird.
Wait, Elder Drazi is in an open marriage?
But I think I get what you're saying. I think I understand where you're coming from.
and I've actually
Internet's made sexuality a lot more different than it used to be.
Yeah, really different. And in some ways it's okay because some of these rumors have actually like caused people who actually do have incest let's say issues. One woman in particular, beautiful woman in her mid 30s who used to like
Great
go
rack.
like date baseball players. She she has a whole history. I don't want to dox her in any way shape or form, but like she was like, I was molested, me and my cousin or brother or something, and so she's just like has all of these like family and sexuality got intertwined on that reptile brain level. And at first she was like, "So are these rumors true?" And I was like, "Well, I don't even know what you're talking about." And then she was like, "Because I'm into it." And I was like, "Oh, really?" And
And you
she's
knew what
like,
she was talking about.
yeah, but it
What
was
other
kinda
rumors is she
interesting.
gonna be into? Yeah.
Well, no, but I mean, like, I don't even know to what extent what is true. People
Right.
say a million different things about me. So, and then she's like, "I'm into it. What I want to do."
We're almost an hour in, and like I cannot imagine what they're going to talk about for another 5 hours.
It was like, "Don't you think it would be awesome for us to create a family?" And I don't want to say it like I don't get you in trouble, TOS, but like to basically have an incest family. And I was like, "Actually, no, I don't like." But she didn't have any kids. I was like, "Do you have any kids?" And she's like, "No." And I was like, "Oh, you know what? I think this is all just." But then she let me know she was really ashamed later, and she said, "Please, please, 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 like don't drop don't use my name. Don't let anyone know. I'm so ashamed. I never feel any sexual feelings except when I'm on these certain meds that I was on when I contacted you, and they make me super horny, and I say stupid shit."
Hey, Laughing
I was
Cedar.
like, I don't think
That's still her.
it's a shame. Yeah, I know, but I'm saying like that the idea that a woman could be with a man, have a family in order to molest him, like the actual chance of this happening is zero. Because when you actually have
Yeah, we can't get through all of them today, but we're going to do like Ben Mondays for the next few weeks till we get through this. I think it's important to document this entire interview.
kids, I don't know. I guess it's theoretically possible, especially women. There's
know.
almost a 0% rate at which, so, but this is just obviously a fantasy. And I think like Mr. Girl, in some ways, you should really understand that fantasies are just a different world than reality. And
Yeah, you must be hungry if you're like hungry for like a very specific item.
sometimes I was like, if you want to talk about this stuff with me, or wait, like play into this fan, I'd like to actually help you to like be more okay with your sexuality, because you should feel
The host isn't letting Ben speak. Ben has taken over. Ben is the host now. He did the Somali pirate thing. He's the host.
100% of the time. Not
This guy's a viewer at this point. He's just a visual representation of chat.
Not 1% of the time when you're on certain drugs. And probably what you're experiencing is something you don't have to like completely repress, you know?
Yeah.
Hey, Grace, any insight at all into your dad's hand movements here? They're very, I think, unusual for him and erratic, and then also like somehow they're always perfectly framed in his square somehow. Like, you think is he being mindful of his cinematography on this exchange?
It's
Because
probably mismanaged, displaced sexual feelings.
yeah, it's somehow like my guess is that something really happened to her. That didn't happen to me. I was like, I just, haven't been through this trauma. But I can see
Why am I not getting evidence in Ben's defense? I'm not. This is not. I'm not a. I'm not Ben's defense attorney. I don't know. I don't think I would do very well in a courtroom environment, to be honest.
that if you, experience some pleasure in these experiences, which
It would be funny though to go up to him with like an old style microphone and like jump out of the bushes with like a cameraman and like do an ambush interview of him as he came out.
I don't think is all that uncommon. But like then you like repressed it and said
And
like,
then release thousands of wasps inside the RV, and finally to see, then we'll know if the Thorps are up to fish tank is if they can make it through RV tank.
I feel super guilty, which I have a ton of sympathy for, someone young who like just gets super stimulated in this area with someone who like they didn't, you know what I mean? And then it's like, you should process that.
If your
It's
first
like,
sexual
it's
experience
okay.
happens when you're really young and you suppress
Grace
it,
is a very
then all of
competent
your
lawyer.
sexual
True.
feelings that you have are going to be
True.
stacked on top of that initial experience that
Right.
you've had and suppressed. So the only sexuality that you're going to know is going to be in tandem with the abuse that you suffered. And I think that it's
Right.
impossible to develop healthy sexual desires and habits if you don't confront them and understand what's going on to be able to make
Right.
that jump. Yeah, this is
Especially
very
as the victim,
clear.
as
Yeah.
the victim of it. And then in some ways, I'm not saying you're condemned to repeat it, but like, ooh, it becomes like something if you don't deal with, and then you have kids yourself, you have to process it, or in some ways, you're very likely to replay it on some level. Most people, but I mean,
Yeah.
the percentage of people who abuse in this way, who have been abused, is quite high. And so, like, you really don't want to be in a position where all of a sudden you're doing something that
I'll
was
be right
done
back.
to you, and you got to live with that, And
I
but
100% agree.
it's
That's
a
why I
very
think it's-
unfortunate aspect of human nature.
That's what I'm saying.
But
You have to figure out what it is going on in you, and you have to
Yeah.
interact with it in a way that is safe for you and everybody else around you, so that way you can develop
Yeah.
proper, healthy sexual feelings.
And you have a right to. You
Yeah.
have a right to work it out in fantasy, or whatever. Like it's
Hey, this is the whatever, the melting pot here.
so unhealthy for you to say like, I'm just gonna bottle that up.
Let's
And
just
she had,
agree that I'm exploiting all parties involved.
she had become like, see, you could see she had put on a lot of weight. She couldn't hold a man. She was an alcoholic, and I'm like, I think probably all of this stuff is related to not processing this. And then, so but I was like, I'm glad you talk with me. If you ever want to talk more, if you want to come over,
It's moments like this, Joe, when we find out if the democracy of this community will hold under pressure.
and like, do some sort of play where you work it through. It might be interesting to me. At a certain point, I can't relate, but you know what I mean? I'm not going to be able to tell you, like, I get it, but like, you should explore this because it seems like it's killing your life.
Yeah, and I think that I've met women that have had similar stories. I've never heard of like an incest family, but they've had like
Yeah.
similar kinks and fetishes, and then it comes out like that there was some abuse there, and that
Yeah.
I think that talking about those things with somebody that you end up being sexual with who is an adult who can have a productive, healthy sexual interaction with you, that's sort of how you bridge those feelings
That's true, Ruby. You shouldn't change. I think you're fun as a toxically, mentally ill bitch.
into
Just my
having
take.
healthy sexual feelings.
Yeah. I think most kinks, I don't have any, and people tell me I have a kink, which is that I love the idea of romantic love with a woman, in the context of a permanent relationship where you're absolutely looking forward to having children is a kink. I would call that normalcy. But fine if you want to call it a kink, because like most people are like,
we all put aside our differences because in the end we're all really just fans of Fernando. We all have to know what happens in the Fernando saga, so we have to keep these communication lines open.
I don't know. That's weird. Let's call that a breeding kink or a love kink. Okay, that's fine with me.
I happen to know that Ben is a big Fernando fan. He doesn't like to admit it though, because it's because it's a Ruby orbiter. But I think Ben's a pretty big fan of Fernando.
I think it's a kink because it's so specific.
I just think it's like it's sort
or
of
the fact that you're
definition of
putting a name to
marriage. Right?
Well, the fact that you're putting a description to it, I think if like for most people that want that, it's just sort of they just they just go for it and they don't really like think it through. If you're thinking about it a lot, I think that might make it a little bit more fetishy.
Maybe if you're like, I'm thinking about what my kids will look like when I'm penetrating you.
Oh my god!
And I'm so into you getting pregnant that I follow your chart of every month of ovulation.
Yeah, when he asked if you were horny or no horny, you think he's dangerous? No way.
And it's like I get super horny when you're ovulating. I mean, but
Daninsky, you would be the one person that that would go to war with Fernando.
Also, I think that's just that's what two people who really want to have a kid would be doing, So
yeah, I think if you're super focused on having a kid, that makes sense. I think
my kink is like the real life version of that meme of the trad girl versus the alt girl. I think that's my big thing.
That So I guess I noticed that I think everything that you said is fine, and I understand where you're coming from, but I think that your genuineness and lack of filter.
Everything you're saying is fine.
It doesn't do you a lot of favors for people that hate you.
Yeah, but the point is, I don't give a fuck.
Yeah, that is very clear to me.
And it kind of works in a way that if I don't give a fuck and they have, if they want to just go crazy, then okay. So then you get this blood sport thing, which I'm fine with, which, makes a certain.
I'm just going to say this on the whole institution front, that if they do bring back institutions like a lot of conservatives want to, YouTube is going to really suck. Like, I feel like a lot of the best creators are going to be gone. Probably a lot of the biggest donators are going to be gone. Like, that's not a very fun landscape. He's on hard drugs. Well,
name, but it does. And this is what I really wanted to talk to you about with Mr. Girl. I don't think he so much gave a fuck either.
I don't think Fernando is dangerous. I just think he's like I just think he's kind of a strange person, but very interesting, especially if you've been following like his little arc over time.
But he oddly ended up really giving a fuck. You know what I mean? This was what I found. Maybe you could help me understand this, but I had an interaction with Destiny within 5 minutes of my interaction with Destiny. I was I had said I don't give a fuck. This guy sucks.
People in this chat, there will be no chat. They'll be like that guy that watches public access while he gets high. Lock him up.
Sucks. And I'm just gonna hammer him.
I didn't see. I know which part Ruby was talking about on her stream, where she pulled her shirt open and then stuck her camera in. But you couldn't see anything. You could just see what you could see in a bikini, really, and not even that. That's the only thing I saw that was a little bit goonerish or scandalous.
When I'm here on his stream, and then he's gonna boot me, or I rage quit, and then we'll take it from there. Whereas Mr. Girl had a year and a half, I think, of friendship with Destiny, and then made this huge report about him.
Yeah, he's a Ruby orbiter. Yeah, I didn't think it was anything that scandalous. Sorry.
Which is pretty much just saying he is who he mostly says he is. So it wasn't really you know what I mean? So I was and then he's I think he was saying I was really hurt by how he was treated by that community.
I just know if Ruby's out on a walk and she sets her phone down, that's when the Bible reading goes out the window and the filth comes out.
And I'm well, I don't really understand that. I don't really understand.
I think I can illuminate that quite a bit, but
There's a great segment from her stream yesterday. She like sets her phone down and like does her like Ruby dance and whatever, and I told her it was filth. And the next time she stopped, like she was conscious of it, so didn't do it. I thought that was really funny.
If you don't mind, I have a question that perfectly ties into this. If you answer that, and I'll go right into that. I'm gonna ask how much of like I can only imagine the variation and the quantity of online hate that you get. How has that affected you and your family? Because it can't be like nothing.
Yeah, that's true. So I would say we're just now. I'm trying to get
What if Fernando has like 800,000 followers on TikTok? Just nobody that knows him knows about it.
I just met a 25-year-old girl who just interviewed me earlier today, and I was like, "Oh, you should network with us." But I did say to her,
Ruby's denial of some of the truthful criticism of her. Well, I mean, if she took everyone's criticism and like improved her life and got herself together or whatever, like I think like people imagine she could or would, like it'd be a boring show, I think.
her if she's new to it, and I was like, what you'll get is a first wave, especially as a female. No joke about it. People go, well, it's easy to be a female. You have a pair of tits and you get many more views. That's true.
Wow.
But also you're objectified in a way that men are not. And it's really tough to take, especially for women. Like Grace was 19 years old and she gets this shitstorm, and it was really tough. Some ways, like sort of permanently kind of hurt her. Okay.
There's no
But
right
in
way to
other
be a woman
ways-
online. Either you're prude
Yeah, right.
or
No
you're
matter
a
what,
slut.
you get screamed
Oh,
at.
yo,
That's
you're
right,
so
yeah.
prude, you won't do this. And as soon as
See, this is classic Memphis booking again. See, remember Dutch Mantel got kicked out by Buddy Landell and Bill Dundee, and when he gave the interview, they asked him like, "Hey, what happened? Why did you what happened? Why'd you leave the group?" And he's like, "Well, I didn't stop liking them. They stopped liking me." Ruby's got some real Dutch Mantel vibes in this feud.
as you do it, like, oh, she's a fucking whore. I knew it.
Right.
There's no happy medium. Everybody wants you to be everything that you're not, and as soon as you change, now you're fake, or you're
like I want Ruby to have like a safe, stable life, but I think some people have like this fantasy that like would like smooth out so much of her personality and like who she is and her wackiness that like I think some people want all that to go away and her just to be like a normie person, and I don't think that's fair to Ruby.
the bad way of me saying whatever you are. Yeah, it's tough.
You unbutton your shirt, one more button.
Hey, Robot
the Christians want to crucify you, ironically. You button it back up. And
the people who wanted to see that button
liberals
undone
like
are pissed off at you now.
Yeah, right.
They didn't want the button undone. They wanted the fantasy of the button being undone. And now that you did it and everybody else got to see it, now you're a whore. I wanted that button for me.
Right. But in some ways,
fair.
it's an
Laughing
exaggerated manifestation of what it is just to be a woman, which is that, a young woman has a certain amount of sexual power, right? And then she has it at a very young age, and it can be very difficult to.
But do you think that makes us victims of the victimhood, though?
Negotiate. Okay. Online, it's just exaggerated wildly because people can say whatever they want behind the shield.
Okay, Joe Shabatoni, where are we at in the stream? 1 hour, 23 minutes has stated that Ruby will be on the RV in the calendar year of 2025. Book it. Locked in.
Of anonymity. But pretty much they're just saying what, like, you wouldn't believe what guys, you and I both know when we were young men and we saw, like, someone who was whatever, just a pair of tits, it's like that thing that was in a reptile brain. Now people just say it. Okay.
Well, that's okay. That's part of the appeal of the Thorp streams, I think, is because this is kind of a somewhat like, bipartisan space to talk about the issues going on in Thorp world, and it doesn't irritate the people who watch the arrest videos or whatever who really don't want anything to do with this stuff.
It just is what it is. It's not really all that threatening, especially online, but it is a little overwhelming.
Totally, Robot Glock.
So there is, I think no matter who you are, unless you're the most banal type of streamer who's just like doing makeup streams, but even them, I'm sure they get
absolutely
weirdos, But you can be in a relatively safe space, but live streaming, you're always going to get trolls. Then you have to determine whether you're going to like ban people who are saucy or like whether that's the internet and you should embrace it. I almost always go for the latter. rather than the former, because I'm like, well, any interest, if you're interested enough to make a stupid comment, I'm okay with you. Like, you're interested, so welcome. I'm not going to put you on a panel, but like, you can do it in chat. I'd rather have a lot of interest than a little interest. And if you get bored, you'll leave. But if you know, a lot of times people who originally come on as trolls, like the guy who did that video that you watched, which was like a 3-hour video, put an enormous amount of time into it. And he was a total hater. But I actually think he has quite a bit of respect for me personally at the end of that, because I stood by it and I was like, all right, you know what I mean? And like, obviously he found it sort of fascinating in a certain way, right? To put together. Hate is interest. It's not disinterest.
Yeah, I think the thing that made me give you the charity to say, like, all right, I'm not going to listen to, like, I'm taking everything that I hear here with a grain of salt, is because if you were a liar, you'd be saying a lot more different shit than you're actually saying. So I feel like that you're typically honest when you're talking with people. I think sometimes you fuck with people too, when you want to. Like, why would?
Is this guy like? Is there some kind of a? I don't know anything about this guy, Elderdrazi. Is he some kind of? Does he consider himself like a body language expert and like a, reading people expert or something? It seems like he's almost like. Well, maybe he is profiling Ben. Who knows?
Wouldn't you? Because it's streaming.
I actually pretty much. I think like Mr. Grow, pretty much like. I would say that almost everything I've ever said.
Are you sure, Ruby? Laughing Cedar doesn't seem like a bad person.
Is both like that. Is both true in the sense I'm not acting or lying. I'm not trolling in the sense of just lying, and it's also actually not really that controversial, except that people online hear it a certain way, and I do lean into sometimes. Like kind of recognizing that this is going to sound controversial to people who are hyper puritanical, to say, for example, that it's totally normal for an older man to flirt with his niece a little bit and say, like, don't you have a beautiful dress? Even if she's just...
How do you think the, did you do any weed with either of them, Ruby?
I remember that.
I do think that's called flirting. I actually don't think that's leaning in, because there's no other word for it. I understand that word also has a sexual connotation in a certain context, but I actually think that's not even controversial. I could go around to all the old men in the old Portuguese
low trust area.
And Polish men in this community, and they would go, yeah, of course, that's not even controversial.
When you said that, my wife and I were watching that stream, and I was just like, everything that he said about like why he said that is 100% true. It's just like, but like, I wish
only
he said
a weird
it
person.
I just wish he said it differently.
Why though? Why?
Because I know what people are gonna say. Because I know that because a lot of stuff that you said in that stream made a lot of sense. And it was just like I thought it was a good stream.
They drank a lot, but none of that. Yeah.
Stream, but if you had said it in a different way, I knew that it wasn't.
I'm curious how it would affect them.
Going to that people weren't just gonna jump all over you. Like, so when you say something,
I'm curious how different types of mind-altering substances could benefit the Thorps.
Maybe these people have to wrestle with why it is that they're so.
They don't have to, because they're just going to call you a pedophile and move on with their.
I just noticed the gold chain. Wow, that goes perfectly with the rest of the outfit.
With their internet life, that's just what they do. They don't have to introspect. They don't have to think about like, was that an interesting point? Is it interesting that like this is technically the correct word to use, even though it just feels weird to hear it being said? Am I able to like differentiate when somebody says flirting in a romantic sense, or when they say flirting in a playful sense that would be appropriate for any two people to engage in? They're not going to do that.
Well, it made you and your wife like.
That's what I was thinking. Yeah. I think when I covered the Dalmatian dog visit, I don't remember if Grace was in chat and we asked her about it or not, but I feel like they did. That she said she did.
Had a little bit of a conversation.
He had the
about
vape.
It,
I think
maybe you were like, "Is that okay to say?" And then you're like, "Okay, I think that is okay to say." And then you had like a thing about like what made it maybe not prudent to say, but like
that would be very telling, don't you think, Robot Glock? Like how the trip turned out, I think would be pretty telling about the reality of their worldview and mindset.
So I don't care if that was the only conversation.
I also thought it was funny that you said it that way. I mean, I laughed when you said that because I was like, I get it. Yeah. Like, it's true. It's
kinda
accurate way
true, right?
to say it. Yeah, but
For
it's just a
entertainment
very,
purposes
very
and
bad thing to
criticism,
say
obviously.
optically, which is funny.
Depends what you mean, what you're trying to accomplish optically, right? So if you're trying to
Sure.
say like, I would like people, I mean, why did Mr. Girl make a video called "I Am a Pedophile"? I think he wanted to provoke people. And why did he do the? I never actually saw it, but like the
Did you see
thing,
that music video?
no, I
It's
haven't
it's
actually
such a
seen a lot
good
of his
video.
content.
It's
Oh
super
boy.
funny.
I think he's a great artist, but why did he do this? The review of
Cuties?
Cuties, where he, said I was sexually stimulated by some of these scenes. He was obviously aware of the optics of that.
Yeah.
And so, but it did accomplish the mission of kind of like allowing him some access to, people all wanted to interview him. Like, what's up with that? Is that okay or what? And like, and he's very good with the interviews. Maybe he's better than I am because he can keep someone, he does that kind of like withdrawn thing, and people kind of respected him for a while.
The entire time people respected, he had tons of hate too. There's some people that'll never let some of those things go. They won't actually engage with it. They're gonna so. He has a song called "I Kill Pedophiles." Have you heard that?
No. I've seen very little of his own content because I don't think he
Of course not. You're never going to hear that one. The mainstream media is blocking. They don't want people to see the other side of Mr. Girl.
A channel on YouTube anymore.
It's a really good the song "I Kill Pedophiles." It just kind of it starts off saying, "I kill pedophiles because I'm not one," and then
Ruby, wouldn't you agree with me that when it comes to God and redemption arcs and inner peace and inner justice, that really only love can take us there?
Goes in more and more extreme of like different kinds of people that he would kill to just kind of like show, to exemplify how extreme people get with their performative outrage.
Right.
It's like, oh, you kill pedophiles? Well, I'll kill protesters. I'll kill, and it just keeps on stacking up higher and higher and higher. It's like the internet seems to be a race to see who can be the most angry about about the least anger-inducing thing.
And what's interesting about Mr. Girl, I think, like the advice that you say to me, like you should think about optics. Like I actually have, in a certain sense, better optics than him because.
Oh, I don't know if you should.
Children.
I'm just aware.
Well, whatever. I'm just saying, even from that point of view, like, and also like
Ben talking about having better optics. That's interesting.
I have a master's degree in theology. I taught moral theology to high school kids, to thousands of tens of thousands of boys. And so, like, I did have these discussions with kids.
You have a master's in theology?
I have a master's from a Jesuit university, and that starts a whole thing on the right. Jesuits, they're controlled by the Jews. You get into all these conspiracy shit, like, you work for the Mossad, the FBI, the CIA, whatever, but you do have to be careful if you're going to be in these spaces trolling. I don't think you have to be careful.
You're speaking as an authority too, then.
I have some degree of authority, but also, like, my record is clean as a whistle. Like, literally, there's no one who's going to come out of the woodwork other than my own son and his mother who are ever going to say that I was abusive in any way. I've worked with tens of thousands of kids from the age of 16. Like, I'm clean as a whistle. Like, I've never.
There you go, Joe.
Any of this kind of stuff. So, but I also would say I'm really comfortable with. Like, I've had to make peace with, being a man who has a high sex drive. I've learned to say, like, I'm okay. I have a penis, guilty as charged, and I love what it's done in my life because it brought me
This is very interesting energy, especially compared to kind of Ben's vibe now.
6 kids. And I think that's what it's all about. Like, I'm not even into I'm arguing, I argue against premarital sex.
Laughing Cedar, would you come up on Discord on a panel with Ruby sometime?
But I will say things that are a little bit spicy, like the whole consent thing in premarital sex is inherently problematic because women, when they're engaging in premarital sex, women more than men are taking a risk, and the don't want to be asked if they want to do this. They want to like just kind of let it happen. Okay, and I'm arguing it's easier to say like I'm against it altogether for these and other reasons, but within the dynamic, in a certain sense, the crazier it is, the better it is. And that's a problem I don't think we're going to be able to resolve in our culture until we say like, okay, so does this belong in marriage or not?
I think it's not as crazy as we make it out. I think the problem is we use an enthusiastic consent model. I actually debated Brianna Wu against I was against enthusiastic consent. I'm for an authentic consent model. You don't.
Yeah, I
have
don't think
to
any
be,
of these things.
You don't have to be jumping up and down. Well,
authentic consent model, enthusiastic consent model.
Consent just means like, if they wanted to do it, then it's fine. Like if they agree to do it, it's fine. You don't have to be jumping up and down for joy to have sex. If you're just dating somebody on the third date and they're like, you want to come back to my place? If she's like, all right, yeah. And if she's just, like kind of weighs it, like I don't really think that like third date wasn't it for me, but like I do like him and I don't want him to go away. Yeah, I guess if I could get a couple more dates to see.
Ben's getting horned up hearing about this.
Interested because I don't want him to think I'm not interested in him. I'll have sex. This is fine. This is 100% totally fine. It's something that you're allowed to weigh and make that decision on. You don't have to be like,
talking about
I still want to.
You were talking about people who are fairly mature. I'm talking about within like hookup culture, club culture.
I think Savvy Guy would say that if you're with a woman and you can't tell whether or not she's down to fuck you, it's over for you.
Okay. Like this is very, very like, and it exists. Hookup culture, Tinder hookups is a big chunk of sexual activity. Within these chunks,
Mr. Stinky Beer, we're just having a light, whimsical exchange between Ruby Spacek and Laughing Cedar.
You know, it's a lot of chemistry and reading the room right, and I'm not saying I have a lot of experience with it, but
I think if you meet somebody on Tinder, they come straight to your house, you're fucking. There's let's be real.
Well, but not if she says the next day, like, actually, I'm not sure I was into that. It's just a very dicey situation.
What?
I'm against it altogether. I would say this is stupid. And a lot of men in the manosphere are now saying like it ain't like this is like a friend of mine told me this. His Italian grandfather said the fucking you get ain't worth the fucking you get, and like that's super true of premarital sex in the age of Me Too, and like really who's going to adjudicate? How does anyone know? How do courts, right? But it tends to be this is the problem I think. It tends to be misandrist. It tends to be anti-men. It's almost impossible to accuse a woman of raping you. It's possible theoretically, but like, come on. But it ends up being that the sexual revolution, which really happened.
Ruby, there is some truth to what Laughing Cedar is saying. Like, people were getting timed out yesterday, like while Grace was on the show. Like literally on the show, they were getting timed out just for like saying her name. Like that's kind of if someone's on the show, like you should be able to talk about them. I think anyway.
And really changes everything. Ends up, while I think in a sense the people who wanted to do it were men to say like let's throw all these rules in the garbage. Ends up with a society where the gun's pointed at a man's head for having a dick. A normal man. I think premarital sex is now normal.
Yeah, JF. And then I don't know what was going on with the onions, but I saw some people got timed out for that. But JF definitely got timed out for saying like Grace something.
And so
I think somebody else said Grace was cute and got timed out.
So it's really, really hard to navigate, and I think we're better off with a much older model. But in the meantime, I think we should really be super hesitant to like. I think when you have a misandrist, it's just like misogynist. Women don't win when men are really unhappy and like are paranoid constantly. Nobody wins, and
Ruby's mods are like I think personally and emotionally invested in her like as a person. It's not like the Thorp moderators who are more like content brained. So like I think it like legitimately upsets some of them when like especially when Ben was on.
No, I think we got to be real that consent is a failure as a substitute for like marriage. It's very, very different.
I think,
And
well, let me put it this way. I understand. I think it would be insane for you to have the feelings that you have about marriage and for you being religious and not feel that way. I have different ideas about it. I don't disagree with everything that you said here, but I also say maybe if some other time we can talk about this and like trade back and forth. But like, I want to get to know you better and not like tell you why I think like this thing that you're saying is wrong or like breaking the nuance of that. But
No,
I think it's really, I think it's a really interesting conversation to have, though.
Yeah, I'd like to have more of those conversations. I think there's, even though in a sense I'm coming outside of the norm.
What do you think he's vaping?
Like a lot of times, and I know I've busted your balls about this. A lot of times, I think there's a kind of hair splitting that goes on within the debate world. And you get the same debates over and over again, like flat Earth, round Earth.
You know what I like about this interview is that, I guess if you call it an interview, whatever it is, podcast, whatever, is that this guy is not treating Ben like a character. Like, remember that when he went on President Sunday or whatever, like that guy treated him like, you know, like he acknowledged like, you know what I mean? He wasn't interacting with him like earnestly. He was treating Ben like he was, you know, talking to a movie character. This guy's engaging with Ben like he's genuinely, you know, like open to what Ben is saying and is like, you know, platforming him, I guess. Whereas a lot of people when they interact with the Thorps treat them like, you know, like they're zoo animals, or I don't know if that's the right way to put it.
Because like in a sense, like you can always find a crazy to talk about flat Earth, and the veganism's another one.
Joe Shabatoni's like, hey Ruby, what do you think? 110, good amount for 5'4". Look great by the way.
I don't think it's really, but a lot of times like
I'm
you
vegan.
and Wick and those guys will get into. Oh yeah, okay. Yeah, it's interesting. I think veganism is interesting, but it tends to be like issues with there's a tiny group of people who are like super into it, and therefore they're always willing to have like a very, very
bombastic. He's vaping peach delight. Man, this ice cream man is hitting in this weird ass interview, and the chat drama is like pretty good trip.
Debate about it. Not necessarily all. It's not fair to say to all vegans, but you know what I mean. That's the reputation.
The fact
of vegans.
that you didn't know that I was vegan yet. Yeah.
Hey, can anybody? I know a little bit about it, but can anyone explain what happened with Matt trying to own Z-Star by posting dick pics on Discord?
Kind of shows where I stand. I had a conversation with a friend of mine, Cat Dog Bark, where it was very non-typical. And I think I've streamed about veganism like as the main topic 2 times. One of them was with him because he never had a conversation about it. Just sort of me informing him about what it is. And then another one was talking to another vegan about there's better ways to talk to people about veganism. Because I think that the way people talk about it is batshit insane. Some of it is just things that like, are you logically sound? Yes. Are you going to convince anybody? No. And if you're attempting
gobbledygook
to convince somebody using this, then you're actually being an asshole. You're hurting the cause that you're supposed to be promoting. Fuck you. You don't represent me and other vegans. Then it's bad.
Yeah. There's a lot of Pharisaism. And
just remember that Vegan Patriot is not a vegan.
And judgmentalism in any, like I would say, societally, like it's sort of extreme, right? It's a societal extreme. If every time you go to the market, you're just saying murder, you're all murderers, right? Like
yes,
you can't really hold that, you know. But there are Christians who say that, like, you know, every time there's an abortion clinic in a city, you know, which
I know it's like literally like. It's hard to process whenever I well, like when I went in to put a new emote in a while back, and then I was like, oh, we unlocked another one, and then it kept like adding an emoji, and we went from like 4, I think, to 13 like in the first week. It was crazy.
Which is normal at this point.
So he tried to show off his goods because Z-Star made him feel like he had something to prove. What?
Like, I've got to like just make a huge.
I mean, come on, let's be real. We've already lost Misunderstood, which was like whatever. People might thought it would turn into Thorp TV, whatever. It was Thorp content, and there was some great moments on there. And then we lost the what was it, the Ruby fan throwaway account, which was not officially, I guess, affiliated with Ruby, but had a ton of great content on. We've already lost so much. Let's not burn down the rest of what we have left.
Huge thing about this. It's understandable if you think it's murder, as I do. Well, you got to be able to like.
Hold on a second. It was cheesy, filthy, and looked deformed, and people made a meme out of it. Oh wow.
Roll with the reality.
Yeah, and
like you can't make this you can't make this the first sentence you utter to every human being, because then they'll just go like, oh, abortion people.
Is she a patriot? That depends on your definition. I think she did storm the Capitol. I think.
If people are crazies, right?
Yeah, it takes a lot.
I mean, to me, she is. I mean, she seems pretty. She seems. I don't want to say like she's definitely not a free speech absolutist, but she at least like has much more of like will give people leeway in her chat. So I mean that's pretty patriotic, free speech.
Like it or not, it's normal to say abortion. Like the debating about abortion is, or being pro-life, pro-choice is intellectually normal. It's okay to say. You can say, well, I would say it's a lot like it's worse than being a Nazi, logically.
I think if you think it's murder, you'd be crazy not to bring it up sometimes.
Also, I just noticed this. I didn't look before because Ben said the picture was a different one, but he went to show him the picture that was like of him being a loving father, and instead it's the one where it looks like it's like Hunter Biden picture.
Yeah, but I mean, you got to also have relationships with people that aren't all about that.
Yeah, I understand. I do. I think that and somebody's
and recognize that a lot of pro-choice people, what maybe confused or maybe are seeing this from just a different point of view. Then they're not necessarily bad people who are saying murdering babies is fantastic. There are a few who say that, but
yeah, again, like I'm like crazy pro-choice, but I don't usually but like
I usually don't bring it up.
I think it's pretty fair to think that most people
agree.
might not know my stance about it because I don't talk about it all the time. Even there's people that have known me for a long time. They have no idea that I'm vegan because I'm not here to convince anybody. If somebody wants to talk about it, let's go.
Right.
I'm totally down.
Right.
I'll explain to you why I think it's right and all that. But otherwise, like I might make jokes here or there. If something's super tasty, I'm like, wow, that actually tastes like it was made with cruelty. To just like
the original master version of Ben taking a shit on Lol Cow Rejects episode 2 gone.
Fuck around, but that's people who already know me and stuff. So yeah, I think that if you have anything that you actually care about, being fanatical about it, interacting with people in a fanatical way, you're a bad person because you care about this thing and you're hurting the thing you care about.
Right. It's counterproductive if you actually care about it. So it's like you can't.
Can I clear what up? Who was here in the chat first? You were. Well, I think you guys are on two. You guys are arguing two different points. If that's what we're talking about. In that instance, Ruby's saying she was the first in the stream today, which is true. But I think Stephen David is saying that like Grace's original flag planting on Fusion Studios earns her like all-time firsts, right? Is that what he's saying?
You can't be saying I care about something and yet I'm making the worst case for it. Then it's like, what are you doing here? You're actually like you're the best. You almost like you would almost like be paid by the opposition to like be making the case against this.
Yeah.
We have like the most toxic chats on YouTube, and our argument today is who was in the chat first. No way Cheeky Lolcow Vibes came back? Oh shit, thank you so much for letting me know, dude. Amazing. I'm definitely going to check it out. I saw that he like rebranded into a bunch of other stuff and I just lost it. I just was like, nope, I like the vibes. I'll have to check it out.
Yes.
It makes you an asshole to hold this philosophy.
So. Oh, I talked to Smeth about it because people came and talked to him about veganism and they were so terrible that he left. I've never seen Smeth leave a stream before like that.
Pretty tolerant.
And I was like, Smeth, tomorrow, if I could talk to you about veganism, I think you're going to grow and stuff. And I don't want you to get bigger and bigger thinking that that's what veganism is about. So I just like to talk to you about what it's actually about because that was insane. Right. Those people are bad people if they're actual vegan.
Ruby, do you think you could give do you think you could give an honest, unbiased answer to this without factoring in like Ben, or do you think you'd be too biased? What would you think if a guy was like, hey, do you want to see it? And you said, yeah, and he sent a flaccid dick pic. Like, do you think you could give an honest appraisal without the Ben factor.
Vegans. I think that they're like actually just like not good human beings. If they're gonna use it as a way to just like dunk on you and make the whole movement look like shit, fuck them.
Yeah. Right. A few bad apples ruin the whole. Right. I mean, that's true. I think of veganism. That's true of flat earthers. I don't know. There may be an argument for
the Durunda streams don't have this kind of conflict. Well, sometimes.
Flat Earth, I don't know, but like I wouldn't even want to know the people who.
But they do have ATF media saying weird things about that elderly woman, Mary Lou Dragon. I know I can say it freely here because he'll never watch a stream that's about the Thorps.
Propose it are so crazy, and they start denying that space exists, and it just sounds to me like this is a psychological problem. But it may be true. I'm agnostic on, like I don't think it really makes a difference to me one way or the other. I'm not going to like. You know what I mean? I just assume we landed on the moon, for example. Right? But I know that there are things that are, I think the COVID experience made a lot of people lose faith in things to an extent that is really unhealthy. But I get why that could be. We've been eroding trust.
I think that's why everybody's like, is a big part of why everybody's checked out, like for a multitude of reasons related to it. But like, I think that's a big part of why it just seems like everybody's kind of like mentally checked out on a lot of things
in institutions for a long, long time. And now we have the people who are very cynical, who are a lot of times running things, and they like, it's sort of like a self-fulfilling prophecy. But I do have a problem online. Like I do have a problem online with a lot of the hair splitting that misses, I think, the larger. That's why I call it sometimes. I think on your panel I said like this, a lot of this intellectual masturbation. Are we seeking the truth here? Because there's a whole.
Now Ben said masturbation. Do you think that was the final, like, sleeper cell cue for Grace to get down to business?
Like, say, coming from a religious point of view, which I know a lot of people are like, well, that's something you read in the Bible. It's pure faith. I mean, that's a very cartoonish version of a religion.
There's a fantastic documentary. This is kind of unrelated, but about the HIV scare in the 90s on the, like, right as porn started to shift over to, like, direct-to-video stuff instead of being, like, shot on film and released in theaters and stuff. It was, like, heavily home video. There was, like, a huge, like, HIV outbreak that turned into, like, a true crime story. And there's a documentary about it, but I can't remember what the name of it is, but it was really good. Really like super like 90s vibes too.
Religious perspective on life. In some sense, we all have a religious perspective on life and the things we hold some things sacred. So we should be able to have a conversation. I understand that a lot of fundamentalist Christians will not really have a conversation that is open to challenges. But, I think that they're like a religious.
But we can't watch it on here because it's got a bunch of tits in it.
Point of view is a thoughtful, sophisticated religious point of view is an interesting alternative to a secular point of view. And those two worldviews should have a conversation and can have a conversation. But you get written off a lot of times if you just mention that you're Christian, then they go, everything you're saying is like because someone told you it, some authority told you it. And that's not true, especially for me, like convert, because, I ask these questions. And I came to believe that, in my case, the Catholic.
Well, I can tell you a story about when Grace was mean to me. When I did that pop-up IRL streamers as art exhibition, I had like a little table of snacks, but I knew that no one was going to come to it unless they just wandered in randomly. So I didn't get very much stuff. So I just thought it'd be funny to take a picture of like a couple of sugar-free Red Bulls, a Dunkin' Donuts bag, a big bag of sour cream and onion chips. I don't know. It was like a bunch of like Thorp TV like food items. And I sent the pictures from the event to Grace, and she said I was stingy with the snacks.
Catholic Church, the teachings of the Catholic Church are like the moral teachings of the Catholic Church are actually the formula.
So none of us truly are, insulated from Grace's wrath.
For everyone to be happy.
Yeah, I understand.
They're not based on faith per se.
I wanted to tell you too. I think it's really cool that you have a master's in theology. When I was in high school, figuring out what I want to do, I really wanted to be a theologian, and I found out I can't. There's no way for me to get a fucking job with that degree that I would want to do. Like I'd have to be like a professor, or I'd have to write a ton of books. And both things are just super hard career paths to get into. And if I want to write books, I don't need the degree. And if I want to be a professor, I have to wait for like 2 people that are like old enough to like perceivably die by the time I would have my degree like that.
Grace
But
called you
that's
an old
super
bag.
cool. We should definitely talk about religion sometime. I'm like
Depends also what religious, you know, like for Catholics, of course, there is like an institution.
She was just kidding, by the way. It wasn't like she was mean about it. I mean, I literally was, so. But I do think it's an interesting tidbit. I don't think anybody else had done it up to this point of like presented an entire like, because I showed the entire OPC almost got arrested stream, and I think that was the first time like an entire live stream had been like featured as like in an art exhibit. So OPC Don is a real part of history, unfortunately.
You know, so there's all sorts of jobs. When it was one of the benefits of becoming Catholic is like,
well, you can become a priest too.
Right, but you can also be like a teacher. You can be a youth minister. There are a lot of like, there's a big institutional network.
As a non-religious person, though, I'm aggressively agnostic. I get really mad at people when they say there is no God, just as much as I get mad.
We need to organize a massive meetup where we dismantle the Thorp Harvey. Wouldn't that be illegal?
At people who like say I know that there's like you could say you have faith.
But really, is there law? Are laws anything anymore? Like, are we just basically lawless at this point?
Accept that wholeheartedly. You have faith, but like if you could know that there's God, you couldn't have faith. Why would God can't?
Some people saw it, not very many, but one person got really upset because there was an introduction of like some of my favorite moments from like Thorp adjacent people. And there was like Matt screaming about the EFD, $306. And then right after that, it switched over to Grace's Pussy music video. And someone heard the lyrics from in the hallway and came in and was really upset about it. So like in my video where I filmed it playing, I had to cut the video early because somebody was really upset.
Be benevolent if he allows you to know that he exists. You have to be able to have faith. That's
I actually disagree with you. But on rational grounds, I don't believe that. I believe you can absolutely know with reason that God exists, because
not out of faith. I thought faith was the thing that matters.
In fact, like what I'm saying is like let's say the sentence "there is no God."
Mm-hmm.
It actually is.
You want the grill?
It's not a sentence that's false. It's just it's like if I was to say to you like, one thing you should know about me is that I'm a liar. Like that's actually impossible for you to make sense of as a sentence, right? Because
it's paradoxical.
Are you lying about right? It's so inherent. And I think actually the same thing is true of saying like I know that there is no God, because implicit in language are a number of spiritual realities, whether you want to call them that or not. Language depends on ideas, depends on all sorts of stuff that I would say is close enough to calling God. Now, that doesn't mean that you're a Christian, but I would say like that we are all. I would say what that really means is
I would like to have the cigarette maker. I want the original NCO document, and I want the Hooplandia shoes.
If you say I don't believe in God, it means I'm angry at God. It doesn't mean you don't believe in God. But I don't really want to that gets into high level philosophy, and most people don't have the equipment necessary to actually parse that out. But I do absolutely believe that you can know that God exists by reason, and you can also know God in a way that, like, from personal experience. Now, that's not really faith either. You can have personal experience of your creator that is like as true as that I have experience of my family.
I've actually
but I get that that's not a rational thing that someone who's skeptical is going to be, but I can say like I know my creator. And I believe that's a fair.
What are these VP clips? I just post like vibe clips of her smoking. A lot of times too, like she'll talk during whatever she's did, like lore shit during mukbangs and stuff like that. And it's whatever's interesting to me.
Statement to make, but I understand that like if you haven't had that experience, okay, then
yeah.
But
I argue for revelation. Like you can't.
Like I like walking content, store content.
It's not right to say somebody. I said the best argument for believing in God is saying that I had revelation. If you have a personal experience and you deny it, you're crazy. If you see something or you hear something or you feel something and then you convince yourself you didn't have that, any other scenario, we'd say that you're a crazy person now. You're denying reality as it was presented to you.
but I also believe
So
you
you'd
could say,
have
like,
to
of
believe.
course there must be a creator of the universe. You know, like the proofs of God. You can look into that. I don't think any of them have been disproven. I think that there is an uncreated creator. If we just leave it at that, of course that must be true.
Sure, I understand. Yeah, and I know I have to. I can talk about religion all day, so I have to.
Yeah.
I have to stop.
Again, like I can't imagine another 5 hours and 10 minutes.
Because then I'll answer your question about.
But
Mr.
you're right.
Grill.
If you're just like interested in religion,
I super
but
am.
you're not committed to a denomination, the career paths are vanishingly few.
Yeah,
Yeah. That's true.
author and professor. That's it.
Yeah.
Or like if I was a shitty guy, I could be a televangelist who just didn't believe. I think I would have been really good at that. I get my energy up and just like spin a tale, just knowing the script.
Elder Drazi as a televangelist.
Sure, real well. Oh man,
I really want to be a televangelist. I love it.
I think I
love
would
it.
Ben, I can see as a televangelist. Elder Drazi, not so much.
love it. If I had faith, I think that would be like the best job ever for me.
Yeah,
I'm
I
a
think
good
it's
salesman.
cool because I think it's fun. You know, this might be. I think it's fun to, like, if you really believe in something. I'm not saying like
Yeah.
someone who doesn't believe in it. If you really believe in something, you should see if it sells and
Yes.
sells big. And if you believe in something that's like life changing,
What's up,
then
Randy?
people should be willing to
what
give you a lot
terrible,
of money
what a terrible username.
to help your cause. And so, like, I appreciate Protestants because, unlike
You know who's going to get blamed for this? Is Laughing Cedar is going to have to take the fall for this.
Catholic priest, kind of has his life set. It's not going to be super duper whatever, but like a Protestant, it's like you make of it. You know what I mean? Like, it's kind of very American to be like, you make your own church and you call yourself, I can call myself, like, that's what we were talking about before, or elder. I could call myself Bishop Ben, right? And like Protestants do. I could wear whatever collared thing I want to wear.
Ben making fun of people for just randomly putting a religious title in front of their name, like Elder Drazi.
And I just got to try to work it. And if it sells, it sells. And I can, I don't think it's wrong for people who are religious to be wealthy and to have lots of followers. I think that's okay.
What if whoever's behind these alt accounts is actually like an enemy of Laughing Cedar?
Hey, I think you're supposed to succeed, but you shouldn't, of course, prioritize that. But
Yeah.
I don't have any problem with televangelists. You know, any more than I would say, like, if you're an author and you sell a lot of books, good for you. I don't want to take Jordan Peterson's money away from him.
Like I said, I'd love to talk to you about religion sometime, but if I even
Wow,
respond to
dude.
what you just said,
Leave it to Daninsky to come in with like a megaton bomb.
the subject's gonna move off of you, and it's gonna be about religion. I'm just so invested in the subject.
But you know,
Um,
this ties into the Mr. Girl thing. I think
Jeez.
he has, interestingly, for a secular person, a kind of way in which, and I find this morality a lot on YouTube, that like success in and of itself is wrong. Right? So like you shouldn't want to make money or be successful on YouTube. I say, no way. You should want to be successful.
yeah, I think that the thing
No
that
problem.
makes me the most sad about seeing Mr. Grill's career is his aversion to doing things that would make him more financially successful.
Yeah.
Because he's my favorite content creator. It's no secret, everybody knows it.
Bishop
And
Ben.
he does this thing where he just he
So
handicaps himself over and
self-troll.
over again.
Yeah.
And I get it too. He said something that I've said a lot of times in my life. Like, when it comes to my moral system, you can think of me as a strictly religious person. So I understand
What-
why.
What does that mean? Like, if you ask somebody, like, I don't know, I just feel like there's such a huge scope of what religious people believe over the course of different religions and cultures and even like denominations that you couldn't assume, aside from maybe some very broad things.
He does it. And for people that don't have that kind of system, it's a matter of self-respect and being able to understand the world around you. Like, if I adhere to my religion, which is my own rules for myself,
The only person we can rule out as a suspect in the Laughing Cedar case is South to West. South to West is definitely a strong ally of Laughing Cedar.
then I can understand who I am. I can understand the world around me through this lens, because otherwise everything's fucking crazy. You need to have something to root you and anchor
I didn't remove any comments. I assure you I didn't. No.
you down.
Yes.
And I interact.
Are you seeing the things being said in chat and that's staying in here? Get serious, man. If you don't like the clips, I get it, man. If you think I'm a simp, that's okay too.
With the world the same way. It's not like I was like, I woke up one day and said, I'm going to be vegan. I woke up one day and was finally like, I can't keep on telling myself that I don't think that this is correct. I have to adhere to my rules.
No, I assure you I didn't remove the comment, man. I promise you. Shut up, Joe Shabatoni. She had it on the live, or no, she did a live wearing the hat.
That's just how this works.
No, I don't. If YouTube like automatically puts yours into like where you need to sort by newest, that doesn't have anything to do with me.
I think this is true for a lot of people. In the absence of a religious worldview, which of course can mean many different things, they end up with a moral worldview, which I actually think is not.
Yeah, go and look at the comments on some of the stuff I post, man. I definitely don't remove comments. The only time I've ever removed one is somebody put Ruby's full name on one of them, and I took that down just because that's, not cool.
Really, what the Christian religion
and
is
possibly against TOS.
It's not a moralistic religion. And if anything, it's kind of almost immoral Christianity, right? If you think about like the doctrine of grace, it's kind of like
doctrine of grace.
You can do whatever. All you have to do is be genuinely sorry and you're forgiven. It's the scandal of Christianity that it's so liberating. And yet Christianity in our culture is associated with prudishness and like this just kind of utter moralism, which I think is a total mistake, because Christians shouldn't have any problem with sin, even massive sin, murder, all these things. It shouldn't be a question for a Christian whether they should pray for Jeffrey Dahmer.
Here's a great clip.
The answer is absolutely.
Yeah,
absolutely. You should love, and I like Kanye's troll of saying, I love Hitler. That's actually not controversial for a Christian to say. We should all
It's controversial for him to just be saying, I love Hitler, though.
Yeah, right. It's a troll in a certain way, but in another way, we don't judge people.
It's a troll in a certain way.
We don't. Yeah. It is not our job to create a world in which we know who the good people are and the bad people. Even what history has deemed.
I think Grace was at court with Ben, so he might be like out of court now. And then Ruby was at work, I think, like maybe on a break or something.
The worst people. They're all on the list of like, there but for the grace of God go I. I am in no position to judge. I just pray for God's mercy, and the justice system and whatever, international, whatever will play out. But like, I would hate to be a judge. I would hate to judge a man or a woman. Even Jeffrey Dahmer, I don't really know. I'm fascinated by serial killers. A lot of them you can see are like messed up people who had really weird childhoods and got into a place where I don't envy being in that place where you're saying like,
sure.
I think Jeffrey Dahmer's thing was like, I don't know how to love people. I don't know. I've never known how to love people. So I want to slow them down. So,
there you go, Shabatoni, the direct Dahmer reference.
So in order to slow them down, I have to kind of knock them out. And really to slow them down, I need to kill them. Right. And you say to yourself, that's crazy. But I get the logic. You're saying like, I need to slow people down so I can love them. And I'm not here to judge that. I'm
Oh, he thanks Built to Spill. Appreciate it.
Saying like, obviously, that's not healthy, and there's some anger issues there. But like, sure. I'm glad I know how to love people, and I'm happy that they're, able to push back and reject me. But I've known people in my life who are like that. They don't know how to love and relate to another human being, and the depth of loneliness you experience when you don't have social skills is unbelievable, right? Because people are just like that, you can live like totally isolated, never be loved or love another human being. I don't envy being in that position. Where you're actually like saying like the only love I've ever experienced is with a dead body. But I believe that's his actual experience.
One of the best things I ever heard.
I mean, we're only an hour and a half, and I feel like this has been like a gold mine for for Ben Lyons and lore.
Jordan Peterson say was, I don't think how awful it is somebody did that. I think what would it take for me to do that? What would have to happen for me to end up in that same situation? And I understand that.
Yeah, as Christians, it's a no-brainer. We do not have to create this list. Jesus Christ told us, specifically commanded, did not ask. Do not judge anybody. And it's so liberating to say, oh, phew, I don't need to make two. But I think a lot of people on the internet are like with me, for example, they're like,
again, and this is only 190 views. Like, that's crazy to me.
Is this guy one of the bad people, or is he one of the good people like us? And I'm like, I'm so glad I don't have to do that. I don't care. I don't need to do this. It doesn't. But I think in the absence of religion, interestingly, many people say the reason you jettison religion is so you can do whatever you want and live like a libertine. But actually, I think what happens is you become a hyper moralist, even though your morality doesn't even make any sense anymore, in my opinion. If you say, well, it's just a bunch of rules that are arbitrary
Fat Camp is
that
on
I made
now.
up that work for me, like who fucking cares? But it's interesting that I think there's an inverse relationship to religiosity and sort of like moral.
I clicked on the one yesterday and like I don't know what I was expecting, but like it looked super cheap. Their internet was terrible. Like they didn't put any thought into like the setup of the camera or like it was just a complete junk show. I tuned out after like 15 minutes.
Moralism, like Pharisaism, moralism, all this. Because we are religious creatures. We need to make sense of our world.
Yeah, I think I'd just be lost if I didn't have like a strong moral system. I think a lot of people that don't have something, even people who say they're religious and they aren't, I think they are lost.
Oh, it was she dual streamed it? That would explain part of it.
I think they don't know what the fuck they're doing. You can tell by the way they behave, the way they interact with people. They have no fucking clue what's valuable to them or who they are to themselves. It's fucking crazy to me.
The common thought of religious people or conservative people, of people on the left, is, oh, they jettison the rules so they could do whatever they want. But actually, people don't generally. There are very few people who say, I do whatever I want. I kill, I fuck, I go with the reptile brain, and I don't get like. Even serial killers there's no chance they're getting out. In interviews, they always try to justify their actions by saying like it was the demons' voices or like I didn't know what was going on. They end up being, you know what I mean? There is no such thing as a pure.
I think we can place it between hour 3 and hour 4. I think that's the range.
Pure libertine who's like just
because she said her dad had been talking to Elder Drazi for 3 or 4 hours. So I think like maybe 3 to 4, 15, somewhere in there.
Very rarely does a guy say like I kill people and I enjoy it for no reason other than the power thrill it gives me. Very rare.
Do you want me to call in to Thorp TV and ask and then come back?
Yeah, I think it's really good to like when I fuck up, I don't usually try to justify it. I'll just say like unless there's something like you need to understand what really happened here. This is what actually happened. You're just misunderstanding. Otherwise, you say like
the big comedy bit that they had on Lol Cow Fat Camp was debating how many calories were in a White Claw. It was like a 20-minute segment devoted to that.
Yeah, I fucked up. Like I know I was wrong. I knew I was doing something wrong when I did it, and I'm gonna work on it. Here's what you can do to help me work on it if you want to. People don't want to do that.
Yeah, and I think they're right to say like this project of like figuring all this stuff out without religion, without like confession, without forgiveness. I actually think it's like a failed. It's like impossible project. But I think online a lot of people are doing this. I like to offer just like a kind of different worldview. Only God can forgive you. So you need to, you know what I mean? So like, it's just. I think people think I'm trolling. But I really think like there's a worldview that even Christians have lost touch with, and it's a fundamentally like almost.
But act like I'm super entitled to all the information. I was making clips for you, Grace, and now you're not going to tell me.
You would say immoral or anti-moral, but that's not really true. But it looks very similar to it. That
remember when Dalmatian Dog cut that promo on me, and he was like, "Oh yeah, Mark Fusion, look at it. Oh look, Grace, I made a clip of you. Look at the clip."
Is the Christian view of morality, which is like that we're all really, really, really inclined to evil, and only the grace of God. You know what I mean? It's like a whole different way of looking at things. It's liberating from all the responsibility of trying to regulate ourselves, which is an impossible task. I mean, that's the, that's my take on it. We should all chill morally.
Okay. I think that comes out a lot when I see you interact with people.
I think the fundamentally religious response to life is the response of a child, which is wonderment and just joy. And I think a lot of things that people get like hyper moralistic about, like violence, low level violence among people is normal. It's normal for children. I think it should be normal in our society. And like normal sexual activity.
Some great Ben audio clips to be had here.
Like I do think we should like talk about the sanctity of marriage, but in our culture in which we haven't done that, there's just going to be a lot of shenanigans that take place, and I think we all need to relax about it because sexuality is the one area that like it's just very hard to regulate.
Well, Joe, you you probably wouldn't be too surprised then during his time on that I saw on Gracecord, he posted absolutely some of the most unhinged, violent things, like just constantly.
But in a certain sense, internet culture wants to hyper moralize those things and
light violence amongst friends.
So
the Ben Thorp story
sort of kills the joy of life. If we're constantly afraid of breaking the rules, there's no fun.
Nobody's ever going to be able to tell anybody something that's going to be more convincing and more strong than when somebody when you start getting horny and figuring out that this is what your body really fucking wants to do. All that shit goes right out the window. You're going to try to figure out how to do what your body's telling you want to do one way or another.
But then, of course, reason does help us to say, like, well, does this make sense?
Okay.
Sure.
Okay, so we had Grace enter the room at an hour and 38 minutes.
Like, we might have guidelines of like what's acceptable, what's not, but like my point is we're getting to that end goal one way or another. If you're a 15-year-old,
I know that as soon as I saw the outfit, I was just like, this has to be interesting.
Boy, and you can't find anybody to have sex with. You're gonna end up jacking off, even if you think even if your parents tell you that like God doesn't want you to, or that whatever excuse they give you to make you not do it, you're nutting one way or another. Nobody can convince you that your body's wrong. You can't convince your body that it's wrong.
Oh,
I think your body convinces you when you masturbate. Like there is no M in the LGBTQ. No one is like, there is no like hand flag to say like masturbators unite. Right. So because like no one has yet really, it's vanishingly rare the number of people who say like, you know what my sexual orientation is? I masturbate. Right. Because we all kind of still say like, now this should at least involve another person. You know?
I think that's a lot of asexual
it's inherently
people
relational. Huh?
A lot of asexual people are like that. They just do it themselves and that's it. Or they feel no sexual. I guess there's the groups in two different kinds of people. Yeah.
I don't know. Like to me, in a sense, like me religiously, more important than the sixth commandment, which is thou shalt not commit adultery, is the proto commandment, be fruitful and multiply, which is in a sense God saying, fuck.
Yeah.
Fuck bitches. We need to remember that. He wants this world populated with beautiful children. And like, I think that's more important at this point, because I think the danger is not, the danger used to be that we were too exuberant and we could get into trouble. Now the danger is despair and loneliness and sort of like shutting down. And I think that's a far bigger danger to the human condition than,
Hey, Bob Brown. Ben's concerned that the breakdown of the American family is the real problem.
Oh, when it got like crazy, like the big orgies in the middle, whatever, like Roman times, it's like more of a threat to the human experience. Like I think it's better to like have crazy sex than to say, I have come to the conclusion that sex makes no sense, like a MGTOW. Like to me, that's like really sad.
Yeah, I would say it's probably one of the most self-explanatory things once you're in it. Even if it made no sense to you, have sex and be like, oh, I get it. It makes sense, perfect sense now. I get it.
That's why I think like for something, for example, that a lot of people would say is like absolutely normal, like condom use. And I used to think that, okay, use a condom. That's a better way, safe sex, these kind of things. I say no, like no. It's no fun having sex with a condom. Take it off. Take it off. And like it gets crazy, right? If you're not married.
I need to clip these into like Ben Thorp PSAs and play them during like our like VHS era streams.
Married, and that's going to get crazy super fast. It's going to involve a lot of dangers. People are going to get pregnant. That like it's not easy to regulate, but like the condom thing ends up making sex. I thought I was married for a long time,
Avery.
so like I only did it a few times, but like with a condom, but like I kind of say like it's not even worth doing. To me now, it wouldn't even be worth having sex. Now, of course, I'm older, so I have some control, but I would just say, no, I'll pass, even if it was Heidi Klum. Heidi Klum. Oh, really?
Yeah, I had a rare experience. It was the worst experience of my whole life. They fucked up, and it was like the worst pain ever. I got in the hospital. They gave me fentanyl. Okay.
Really nice.
Oh, wait a minute. We have a pro. But hold on. Ruby needs this clip of Ben being pro fentanyl. Do you think what happened is his girl bounced a little too high and come back down and gave it the old Benderino?
The drug that overdoses heroin users was given to me, and it still fucking hurt.
Really?
Yes. I don't.
No, I find that interesting. Why would, even if you had that, why would you say that publicly? I had a vasectomy.
I'm making a video about it. I was gonna make a video about it beforehand as like a much more lighthearted thing because I expected it to go as it does for most people. So it was gonna be like a cheeky like review of the process, but now it's a bit more of a more seriously toned video now that it's actually happened and done.
That's really interesting because for a lot of people, I mean, you must be aware of the fact that a lot of people would say like that's self-care.
Did we get to the bottom of which Cedar question of who was here first? I think we got that resolved. Don't brush that. It's a sensitive issue.
Castration.
Right? Sure, but like,
it's not literally. I understand.
He lit up. Get cracked.
And it doesn't literally keep. It's not like cutting your testicles off, where you're like, become a gelding or something.
To me, this is like ASMR. If ASMR to you is kind of a mostly like monotone podcast that every once in a while something very shocking is said that kind of like shakes you out of your vibe.
Something like that. But it's like,
I still have a sex
I've always
drive.
been fascinated by it.
I still have a listen to this guy. He's like, I still have a sex drive, damn it.
My vasectomy review when it drops. Working on it. But I think that my bigger priority for it now is to give people much better information than what I had given to me. Even when I had the issues, I didn't even know there was so little information online to help me figure out what the fuck was happening to me after it.
Oh yeah.
So, but actually,
it's interesting. A lot of people. I mean, but I think like
I think it was finally agreed upon that that Thorp TV had planted their flag on Fusion Studios first. So they had kind of like all-time rights, I guess, but that Ruby in this specific stream was the first one in.
Like, what I don't know you're thinking, but like I actually think like a lot of MGTOWs are going to eventually all get vasectomies. And if too many people get vasectomies, that's a threat to the human race. I think that's like a huge problem.
Sure. I got the reason I got it was just because my wife is having a lot of issues with her birth control. It was just bad for her, and I knew that.
Man, this guy is just so open with Ben, it cracks me up. It's like when the Thorps talk to just regular people on the street that don't know to guard themselves at all, and they're just like saying everything. This guy's just so open with him. I think he really looks to Ben as a father figure already.
That it was bad for her, and as soon as I found out my insurance covered it, I was like, oh, I can just get a one and done thing, and she doesn't have to keep poisoning her body. Fucking run that. That was a no-brainer for me.
But then you're saying we were never going to reproduce.
Genetic
I already have
failure
a kid.
Is what Ben's
I'm good.
thinking.
I have the number of kids that I want.
I think his clout with Ben really went downhill.
See, I've thought like, okay, I have 6 kids. That's a lot of kids, and like, like I have a lot of interest from younger women, like whatever. I don't know if that's no one's ever really sort of. But why wouldn't I do that? But like,
Well, I have no
To
problems
me-
adopting either. Those kids need parents too.
But to me, it's like, no
Is that true? The wife has to sign? Can you imagine? Oh man, that'd be really something.
way would I
A real like reversal of fortune.
ever, ever, ever do that. And if I did do it, I would never, ever, ever say I did it.
Oh, well, I
Because-
don't do things that I would be afraid to say that I did.
No, I respect that. I respect that. I'm not like making fun of you, but I
No,
just find it
and-
like I can't conceive of a situation in which a man would ever say,
Oh,
but like I'm
boy.
interested. But why would a man ever say like I have like trolled my own virility?
Well,
know what I mean?
Wow.
I sought that end result. That's the end result of it is
Okay, so this is happening at 1 hour 45 minutes. Ben has gone on the offense a little bit. I feel like for the first time, I mean, he took control immediately, but I feel like now we're getting maybe we'll get Hollywood a little bit of Hollywood maybe.
what I wanted. I just didn't know the kind of difficulty as I was going
But
to
it's like your most basic power as a man.
Sure. I guess I just don't.
Did you see XP in the chat whenever he started going crazy in the chat?
I don't feel like I need to lean on that. I have other qualities. I understand. Looking at me, I don't seem like I'm that great, but in person, I do very.
I was just thinking that, Anand, that's exactly, we had this exact same conversation whenever they had the guy from the Star Trek convention back on the RV, and we're talking about like Ben's aura of being able to like get people to open up and then weaponize it against them.
Very well for myself, despite
I agree.
what I got going on here.
You know, I like from the Catholic tradition, you can say in a certain sense, like celibacy is similar, saying like, you know, you can reserve your sexual powers, right, permanently. And, you know, Christians were mocked for this, right? Like, what the fuck, right? You're almost, in a sense, cutting your, you know what I mean? Like clipping yourself, but you never do. Like, it's illegal. It's immoral to do that in the Catholic tradition. Because that's considered self-mutilation, unless it was for like, you know, if you had testicular cancer or something like that. But I just think as a man, it's like, it's just fascinating to me that someone could like,
I don't think so, no, Joe.
like say like, yeah, that's what I'm gonna do. In fact, I have a kind of joke that I'd like to help the racism problem in the world, because I have Aryan genetics. I'm 3/4 Norwegian. I'm 6'8", you know, and I almost, it's kind of a
Preemptive.
joke, but in a certain way, I'd like to go to all these places where people want to look whiter, like sub-Saharan Africa and Eastern Asia, and just donate
all
my,
those women.
yeah, just make them half white so they don't have to get the surgery. You know, like all the Koreans who get all this surgery.
It's Me says this guy's the American version of Stinky Brew.
Why not just drop a load into like, you know, 1 million women will have a great time. Then you don't have to get the surgery anymore and you'll just look more white. You know, I mean, I think there's a lot of
Well,
like,
they won't
but
let
I
their
think
kids
that's,
fill.
what's that?
The Ben Ruby to me will always be one of the best like slow burn Ben torching somebody moments, just because it was so it was so drawn out, but it was never boring. And then Ben just kept, as the day passed and the conversation went on, that he kept getting like darker and darker in the corner until he was like completely pitch black.
But
said, well,
I
they
don't want to
won't,
raise their
will.
kids.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh.
I know it's sort of a joke, but
Yeah,
I
yeah.
kind of feel like I'd rather do that with my sperm than like
Oh my God.
clip it. You know what I mean? Like I feel like that's more like God would like pat me on the head. Of course, it doesn't make sense, but like in a certain way, I think it would actually make sense. And you know, I think if blacks could be a little whiter and Asians could be a little whiter, then we could all like just say like, yeah, we agreed with Hitler, sort of, and now it's over and we can move on. But it's sort of a joke. I mean, obviously there's logistical problems, but I just find it fascinating. It would be an
Obvious
interesting topic,
logistical
like
problems.
vasectomies, because it's kind of like, yeah, there's a logic to it, but then there's a kind of, you understand that there's a kind of way in which a lot of people, and it's not clear why,
Michigan
are
thumb.
like, that's a huge L. As a man, that's a huge L, right?
Yeah,
Even though you say like,
I
well,
just-
I don't really know why it is.
I understand why people think that. I just don't have those same values. But also, like, I'm polyamorous, so like, my wife's not always my only
Bum, bum, bum. Oh yeah, Grace said he was in an open marriage. Yeah, though that Ben's not gonna care for that.
partner, and I
Right.
don't want to. I don't want to have an accident.
Hey, it's me. Thanks for hanging out. If you happen to see Jim Neihart, tell him I said hello.
kid with a partner that I'm
Yeah,
just
I
like
understand.
romantic and sexual with, like that don't necessarily have an established long-term plan to be with each other. Like
Right.
if I did have another partner that had an established long-term plan, we decided we wanted a kid or whatever, it wouldn't be the worst thing in the world if I had another.
Yeah, I think. Well, he said that was a joke, but then that he kind of agreed with it, but that then in reality he acknowledges that there are some logistical issues with it. That's his take on it.
Kid, but like, it's just not something I'm interested in.
Right.
So it's
Right.
protecting me. It's protecting my wife from the pills that she's on. Also, I'm just really not in a financial situation to have another kid.
Sure. Sure.
And I think that
Right.
it'd be really bad for me to have another kid just like where I'm at in my life, like because I don't want
Yeah.
to.
But why
You
not
should-
control your? I mean, the Catholic thing would be, well, why not just like kind of like understand cycles, and you don't need to do this, but you do need to restrain yourself. You won't have unlimited sexual availability, and like, but you don't have to give up your virility to do that. And
Give up your
but I guess
virility.
I get how you could say, well, I don't think there are any like long-term health problems that come from it. Your body absorbs the sperm.
Yeah.
Right. It's like, unlike birth control pills, which have huge hormonal effects on women. I mean,
Ye-
it's no joke. The birth control pill is not a joke to take for 10 years. It really
No, it's
fucks
crazy.
with
Aside
your-
from
yeah.
my wife got some cysts and stuff. They had to check for cancer at one point. They went away and ended up being
Yeah.
okay. But also, like her depression got better after stopping
Ben's
taking
like, can we get back to what I was talking about?
it, and like
Right.
her sex drive way up. This has been really
Yes,
cool.
right.
And not only that too, but not just sex drive, but like a stronger orgasms. Like everything has like a return sensitivity and stuff. So like
Well,
it's
which
been
makes
way
sense,
cooler
right?
for her.
Because you know what the hormones are. What the birth control pill is doing is trolling your body into thinking you're pregnant, right? And of course, you're not going to have a strong sex drive when you're pregnant. Your body's not going to want, right? The urge is going to be suppressed, right?
Sure.
So it's like common sense, and yeah, in a certain sense, like we've taken the pill, and it didn't turn out like we thought, because I think more than men want anything, that like on the reptile level, they want a responsive partner, right? I mean, like,
Oh yeah, it's a lot more fun when
Ah.
your partner's more into it.
yeah, it like to actually take pills to
Reptile mode. Is he taking pills? Is he talking about King TL again?
like avert pregnancy, but also reduce libido. Terrible. It's terrible, right? Because then like you're still normal, and your partner is like, by her own decision or whatever, your own mutual decision, saying like, I actually am like trolling my sexual response, which
Oh,
is going to
boy.
make the man say like, well, how come you're not into
He's given. He knows now that he's ceded ground.
me? And it just just it causes real problems. There's no
Well, even she
tweaking.
knew even why it was like that too.
Yeah.
Like, it was it's so like she knows that like she's choosing to do it's I think that if you have those kinds of symptoms, it's very
I thought it would. Maybe it will though. Maybe this guy will just roll with it and it'll stay like a friendly debate. But I was thinking there, or a friendly discussion. But I was thinking for a while there, like maybe this is just going to be 6 hours of like casual conversation like this.
it's really bad to be on. So that's why when I was like I'm her husband. I have a duty to my wife and to my kid to do what I can within my power to make their lives better. That falls onto me, as it falls
Yeah.
onto my wife to make my life better where she can. My kid doesn't have any of those responsibilities. We have those responsibilities to my kid, but so if I can get her off birth control, for what should have been a much simpler process than it was for me, it was just a no-brainer for me.
Yeah,
I don't
agree with you.
mind.
I agree with you on some levels. Like actually, that like the like so the religious worldview would say yes, that's true. In some other way,
Didn't we hash out a couple different times of that issue? And I think we came to the conclusion that like the voices were so drastically different. Or was it that the voices were so similar? I can't remember. I feel like we've definitely talked about this though. And I feel like we came to one conclusion or another, but now I can't remember.
of
Which is probably why we've discussed it multiple times.
course, we would say like
Yeah.
neither men nor women should be in control of their reproductive. It should be just like,
Yeah, I was gonna say the way that like my interactions with Ride have been much different than my interactions with XP.
yes, you can have some control in some circumstances, but mostly it should be just like, I'm here. If God wants to make us to make a baby, that's super fun, and I invite that into my life. Of course, you have to be responsible. If there are real reasons not to, okay, yes, but like it's also, I don't know. I find it liberating.
How did King put it with his Finkel is Einhorn? The Furby is Imperious, Imperious is the Furby, Finkel is Einhorn. You get what I'm saying? She was like looking at him like, what the fuck?
To be a Christian, to say like, I'm not going to have to make the decision of whether to clip myself. You know what I mean? Like,
I cut my balls as an affront to God, Ben.
It is an affront to God. It is.
I challenged God and said, if you want me to have babies, you can fix this through your own divine will. And if it fucking happens, then like shit, I guess.
He said, "Be fruitful and multiply," and you said no.
Yeah.
Dude, Ben literally told him above all the other commandments, or like even above like committing adultery, that be fruitful and multiply was the commandment, and then this guy went right against him.
I ain't doing it.
I'll still eat the fruit, but I'm throwing the seeds on the ground.
Well, you know, I don't know. I mean, I'm just saying, like, it's you know,
Yeah.
I get the logic of it.
I understand where you're at.
In a certain way,
it would be crazy for a Christian to consider it.
Yeah, and but see, here's what I would really wonder. This I have no idea. I wouldn't dare, like, I'm not suggesting anything, but I don't think women respect men who have done that. I just think they lose respect on a reptile level, even though I'm sure you were like, it's like noble in a way. What you were saying is like, instead of you being a chemistry set, I'll just get like a physical thing, minor surgery. It didn't turn out to be minor in your case, but like, it like, that's noble. I'll take the hit. But like, I wonder if a woman can just kind of say like, yeah, I'm good with that, because I think they lose respect for you.
I think that there's both. Like, things have changed a lot.
Weird thing.
Like you said, like the women don't like the consent thing. Some women, like there's a whole...
He's like, hey, listen, Ben, you're out of touch, brother. That's gonna play well.
Whole new wave of women that's a huge...
Imagine telling a guy wearing this hat that he's not up with the times. Come on, brother.
Turn on for women have been so like, because I have before like said, hey, like if I know that the woman that I'm on a date with is the kind of woman that would like be super appreciative of that, I'll ask her before I can hold her hand, and she's like, oh my God, yes, thank you so much for asking. And they're like, it's like a big bonus.
Look at Vince. Oh man, here we go.
Things have changed a lot from how they used to be.
I think it's actually
some women.
I think it's. Go ahead.
I think some women would think that I'm just not even like I'm not even a potential partner anymore. That anything.
Right.
I think you're right. I mean, obviously, you're right. It's your preference, but like, I think you're right that there are definitely women who feel that way. But there's no way that that's gonna play in a Ben Thorp debate.
That they would look for is destroyed by me having that. But then there's some women too who would just be like, oh. Like, and especially if they knew that, like, I did it out of respect for my wife's body, they'd be like, I'm all about that shit.
Yeah, I think there's a way in which this consent thing has created...
Why is Elder Drazzy speaking in, like, sound bites like he's on a, like, Jenny Jones panel?
Actually, two niches. Some women love it, that, like, it's all, like, it's so, in a sense, hyper gentlemanly, that, like, men, like, the woman runs the show.
Is that true? Like, is that just an assumption, the Kvetcher thing?
And they love having a man who is like completely subject to their control, but I think they ultimately hate it. And then you get this the 50 Shades of Grey thing, where you have this massive, unspoken desire to be dominated violently by mysterious men who don't give a fuck about consent, and you can't deny that that's there.
This Sunday on Lifetime, Sydney Sweeney stars in, what do you say, violently dominated by mysterious men?
Because 50 Shades of Grey is, like, other than the Bible, the most successful book of all time, and it wasn't dudes buying it; it was women buying it. So it's like created this weird world in which we actually have now like a dimorphism of like what we say, like women will say, "Oh, I love it when a man asks me," but then like kind of behind closed doors, what they really want is now actually you find the rise of BDSM, and like there's this tremendous desire
I'm very familiar.
to drop all of it and just say like, let's go crazy.
I guess I'm just like an
know?
abomination to like your idea of like of these ideas.
South to west, come on, man. You think they set Ben up at the courthouse? He went in, the doors are locked. Then he turns around and they're all surrounding him.
Because like
No.
I'm very much into BDSM too. Like I have we do all that shit too. So like I just think the idea of like a guy who's into
But it's
BDSM
probably
but also has a
consensual, right?
vasectomy. I typically talk about things like well in advance what's okay or not. But I mean, like, look, I've been with women that I know. I know that like
This guy is trying anything he can to claw back some of Ben's, validation after this big reveal.
they want me to choke them before they say it based on their body language and shit.
Yeah.
And I've never seen anybody
See, he's making a comeback. Ben likes that he's choking the women without asking.
melt so much as when I was we weren't like on a date, but I had been dating somebody for like I don't know like a week or two. As soon as I put my hand around her neck, she couldn't even stand up all the way. She had to lean on the wall.
Right.
Because I knew. And
Yeah.
then I remember afterwards, like, how did I even know? And I kind of had to like process like the little cues that I might have picked up on. But like I knew there was no
Yeah.
question in my mind. I knew that that's the thing that she was looking for. I didn't even have to start putting pressure
Yeah, it was Joe Pesci in Goodfellas, but it was in a courtroom or in a courthouse.
before she jellied.
Right. I believe you. It's interesting where it ends up. In a sense, you're in a sense hypersexually aggressive, but in another sense, you're like super safe at the same time. And like,
Yeah, I think
I
that
just think it gets interesting because that could go. You could misread it a little bit. Now you're in jail.
yeah.
Right.
Like I generally,
Right.
before I ever even go on a date with somebody, we've almost always already talked about things that the women are into
Yeah.
because they like talking
Okay.
about it. Women like talking about the things that they're into sexually.
But they also sometimes don't like talking about it. And if you
If
say like,
not,
actually,
That's
you know,
fine.
but then
I know it is just starting to get good. I got to go in like 15 minutes, but I don't know. I feel like it's flowing pretty well. I think we can do another day tomorrow. What do you think? And then we can wait till next week to pick up after that.
you're putting yourself in an
I'm pretty invested now. It's really starting to pick up.
extremely dangerous. Like actually, I think there's a certain type of woman that does not want to talk about consent. Right. And like, especially in the worlds you're living in, you're saying like swinging and all that kind of stuff. Like, I don't know. I just
Not
think it's crazy.
swing,
It's interesting.
but-
Or
yeah.
whatever it is.
Not swing. Now he's really upset.
I don't think you're talking about polyamory technically, where you have multiple partners.
Yes, I
who
am.
are all living together and all acting like they're all spouses.
So that's polygamy with the spouses, but I have had partners that my wife and I were both dating who also lived with us. I've had partners that my wife wasn't dating that didn't live with me. So like I've had a lot of different flavors of polyamory in my.
Do you ever get the sense that what you are partaking in with all this stuff is like an experiment that like is it's snowballing into a kind of level of craziness that like I have no.
Ben and Grace's Fed contract was cut by Doge, so they're cutting back on chaos agents now that everything's getting under control.
We have no idea what happens in these situations. It's
No,
crazy, right? From a
I
certain
guess
perspective.
I kind of think of
crazy what you're
monogamy
doing.
as an experiment, to be honest, because you need like social, like monogamy is like a socially informed thing. Before, like we had like before we had like rules and stuff, like I guess you would just kind of be polyamorous by default if there weren't like
So this
structures
is
and
a lie.
relationships that we're aware of and stuff.
This is a lie. This is a myth about like back in the days before there was marriage. There was always marriage.
Well, I'm
There
not
were
saying
always
before there's marriage, but like until you have an agreement with somebody,
No,
like
it's natural.
monogamy
Marriage
is an agreement.
No, marriage is a natural institution.
Well, I'm not even talking about marriage. Like outside of marriage, just dating somebody. If you're dating somebody, monogamy is an agreement between those two people. What is or is not cheating is agreed upon between the two people. For some people, cheating is like watching porn. For some people, cheating is explicitly like penis and vagina sex. Some people cheating
Right.
might not
This is now
include
what you-
kissing somebody. So these
What a weird thing to say. I always think it's weird when people say that.
are all
Yeah.
agreements that people make with each other.
But you make it. Here's what the problem is. I wasn't originally like I was a secular person, but it's usually lying. You usually say to someone premaritally, like in a monogamous, at least whatever in the 90s when I was in college, it was like, yeah, we're together, but we don't like negotiate it, but it's understood that you're going to be with me, but that you're free also because we're not married. But if you say like, okay, well, I'm going to exercise my freedom, usually the female is crushed by that because she's bonded with you
I'm not
physically in a
denying that
way
there's
that's
general.
not. So it's like all this bullshit.
See you later, Ember.
That's what I'm saying. This
monogamy.
consent stuff, the secular stuff, it just fails, and it usually hurts women. But I get it. I get it. I've participated in it, but it's like that's why I love the traditional thing. You can say like it sucks to have to follow rules. There's a way in which we just don't want to follow the rules, but like if you don't follow the rules, you're not going
Yes, Spicoli was on Ruby's show yesterday too, I think. I think that was yesterday.
to end up in a good place. But I get that people can say, I don't think so. I got another configuration. And I just think like, man, good luck with that. But
Yeah, just as much as I
I'm
get
not
it.
in charge.
I think I know what you're saying. Yeah, just as much as I'm not trying to talk you out of your religiosity, but I might be interested in what you have to say or think about it. I think we're on the same level here.
It's an interesting place to be where we can say like, okay, no one is claiming this is a Christian society. It's a secular society. The way we come up with rules is like we agree on them by a majority. There is a latent kind of Christianity, but it's mostly been lost. And it's like, this post-sexual revolution. It's just we're in experimental phase where like a guy can say like I just had a vasectomy. And it's not seen the way it would have been pre-sexual revolution, which would have been like, what the fuck are you talking about? Or
Bob Brown, that's terrifying.
I fuck other people and my wife does too, and sometimes we fuck the same person, right? And now that's like kind of becoming normalized.
Yeah.
We'll see where it ends up. I do not.
Ben saying this is being normalized to someone who has normalized it in their life is just great.
Not think it's a good idea, but it's your life.
I don't think it's a good
and
idea
your
for
wife's
everybody. I don't think there's. I think
it's a
there's
good
lot
idea
of people
for anybody.
I understand. My reservations are
Well,
based on
whatever.
whether people are emotionally mature enough to like navigate these things because
Right,
there's a
and
lot of
nobody
stuff.
is. My argument would be nobody is. Nobody is. Nobody can navigate that.
Well, maybe. But anyways, I want to get back.
No, I didn't. I'll have to check that out. That's an interesting crossover. Oh, has he been on her panel before? Maybe.
It's
Since
interesting.
we're on the religious thing.
That would make an interesting discussion because you're saying I'm openly saying it, and I get that you're coming from a different point of view. That's all. I would like to just be able to say instead of people saying, "Well, you're just saying that because you read it in a book." Bullshit. No.
And I'm not saying that to you though.
There's experience. No, right. I hear you. I like it.
Yeah, I wouldn't say that to you because I've known enough religious people, and I've even could say that I have been religious in different religions. Like when you grow up studying different religions, you're gonna get sucked in them. They all got hella sales pitches. That's how they became religions. All of them do. So it's easy to
Actually, only Christianity and Islam really have in the like. You know what I mean? The numbers are.
Well, I'm just saying
pretty much
that.
down to 2.
Okay,
The
but
rest of them
if
have
you
all
look at the
fallen by the
numbers that
wayside.
any other like religion, like if you look at the top
Randy. Oh, wow.
30 religions in the world, the numbers they have, if those were sales for any product, you're doing good.
No,
I
only
wouldn't say so.
Islam and Christianity are booming. Everything else has consistently fallen by the wayside because they just don't have that world. Like Hinduism is, if you're not from India, it just.
I don't really follow it, but I do. I'll stop in if nobody else is live sometimes because I always end up with a gifted sub to there or gifted membership. But yeah, I was thinking there was something, or maybe they were on someone else's panel together. I don't think they speed dated, but I want to think they almost did.
Kind of doesn't apply. It's very hard. There are versions of it like Krishna, and there are versions of Buddhism that are like Western.
Buddhism is
You know what I
500
mean?
million.
How can you? Okay, I understand if you have like some breakthrough moment in your life, and say you're like an atheist and you find God, or vice versa, or you're like, oh my God, my religion was wrong, this one's right. But like, how many times can you feasibly do that? You know what I mean? Like at a certain point, you just have to kind of, I guess, just have a general spirituality if you're, but I don't really think you can super buy into like 8 different religions.
Million people. Hinduism has 1.2 billion. I'm just saying, if I sold
Unless you're polytheistic, of course.
1.2 billion of anything, you'd be like, no fucking way. Really? You'd be amazed. That's insane. I'm just saying they all have an appeal. So if you're studying religion, like it's going to be hard not to get like pulled into one or another as you're going. That's all I was saying. But I'm curious about you. You weren't always religious, and then you became Catholic.
Sorry.
How old were you?
I just saw the Grid 1 comment. It like cracked me up. Seems like there's some drama over there at the Sarah's channel. I don't know who's Mel Pandora. Grid said sup to me. Oh my god, how terrifying!
I would say
How did that happen?
I would say I was religious. Like my mother, like I said, her father was Lutheran, so like I was vaguely Protestant.
One time somebody told Grid 1 that something about like, oh look, it's Mark Fusion's favorite person, Grid 1, and Grid 1 was like, nobody cares about Mark Fusion.
And my father got into fundamentalism. They were divorced, so I was familiar with it. And fundamentalism is a trip. It's a real trip, especially when you're a young teenage boy, because especially this dark Calvinist thing. It's a real trip because it kind of tells you like it's so dark. I really think that it's like, man, I can't even like, it's irrational, but it's interesting. And then I was interested in comparative religions, like, right. So I was like you. I remember visiting the career counselor. I went to the College of William and Mary in Virginia, and she was like, "You're studying religion? Like, what's the plan?"
Oh, he's following behind. He's going from panel to panel with Spicoli.
She was just like, she's working for the college.
Are they working like a duo? Do you have to like bring them both on
for this and she was just like, I don't know why anyone would do this, because she's thinking like, what's the job prospect?
Yeah,
and I was like, I don't care. I'm just doing it because I want to do it. And
I'm not. I wasn't familiar with her. If I ever saw her, I forgot about it.
I was just like, I just don't want to talk to you because I don't think like you. I just trust. You know what I mean? That like if it's something I love doing, it'll work out, which it has. Well, whatever. But
yeah, very similar spot to me. Yeah.
Yeah,
it's interesting.
It's kind of like we're seekers, you know what I mean? Like, right? So you're saying like I'll be a vegan, even if I was the only vegan, and I'll get a vasectomy. I don't really, I get it why people would say like, oh, don't do that, but you're like, well, the logic makes more sense. Okay, so
well, if I'm always, I even tell my kid this. I don't care what anybody tells you, even me. If you really believe in not what you want, but if you really think that something is the right thing to do, that's what you should be doing. Even if I disagree with you, and I'm not going to not get mad. I'm not going to not do my job as your father. However, it should be more important to you that you know you're doing the right thing.
Yeah.
Because that's what makes you a good
Catholic
person.
teaching is that like you have to follow your conscience. It is the primal voice of God within you.
You got to follow your conscience.
A lot of people say I'm following my conscience, and they're actually following their desires, or their conscience isn't well formed.
That's why I put that caveat in there.
Right.
Let's make sure we're not tricking ourselves into what we want is what's best for us.
Yeah, short term, right, whatever. But I used to tell kids when I taught morality, right, which a lot of people would be like, oh my God, how could you teach morality? And I was like, look,
true.
The Catholic moral view is oriented towards the happiness of the human person. If you say to me, if you in class want to argue, let's say that abortion leads to happiness, and you genuinely believe that, like, there's nothing I can say. Yeah. All I can say is like, let's think it through. You should be able to make the argument, but in the end, that is the test, whether it leads to happiness. And I would say that
no, even I can't follow everybody, unfortunately.
Abortion leads to unhappiness because it's murder. And you can't get around it. But I don't want to get into it. But I'm just saying, like, yeah. But if you can make an argument, like, then the church takes a W, right? I mean, an L. Like, and I, you could even convince me of it. If you say, like, yeah, I would say if you.
You're thinking there might be more to Imperius than meets the eye. Maybe King TL was right all along.
You can make the argument. I'm open to it. I'm open to like the whole thing is wrong. Okay. There's just.
I actually am morally opposed to trying to convince people out of their religion because I think that makes people miserable. And I think that if you have somebody who's happy and they're not hurting anybody, leave the religion alone.
I mean, it depends.
If you want them to shut the fuck up about
Yeah, Ben's not gonna go for that.
About it, then tell them to shut up about it. But
Right, but
don't-
if they want to talk about it, then of course they're inviting you to have a conversation, and you
Sure.
should be sincere.
Sorry.
And if they end up
if you
breaking
convince
their
somebody
faith
who's
down,
unwillingly
fine.
doesn't want to do it, if you're trying to,
Right,
if you
right,
beat somebody
right,
over the head with it and they lose
Right.
their faith, you created a miserable person.
Yeah, and I think the same is true of, it's like the veganism thing, of people who are like hyper evangelistic, and like like within 2 minutes they say, "Have you accepted the Lord Jesus Christ as your personal savior?" I fucking hate that. Nobody really even knows what they're talking about when they're saying that. It's a very delicate issue. You know, it's something that like people should say to you, "I love your sense of joy. Tell me where you got that from." That should be like your opening to say like, "Oh yeah, okay, so I'm really attractive to you. You want to know where I get this joy from." That to me is the opening. But me saying, "Hey, you're going to go to hell unless you agree with these propositions," you know, that's the worst. Same thing as you said. That's just going to turn people off. God does not want us doing that.
All right, I've got to go. It's starting to get good though. Let's do one more day tomorrow, and then we'll take a break and come back to it at the beginning of next week. But let's do one. I think we're really getting into the good shit now. Although I think it's been pretty entertaining up to this point. Well, thank you for hanging out. I greatly appreciate it. For the memberships, the Grace Dono, the Burger King crown on top of this incredible experience.